Happy Tuesday. Thank you for joining us here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. All is right with the world because Carlene is back.
I'm back.
Carlene is back. I'm joking. Jeb is a great producer. James is a great producer. I just, I have to hype up Carlene. Carlene's great. She's back. She took a day off.
I did.
But she's back.
I'm back.
No more days off for the rest of the year for Carlene.
No, that's
she's
not
back.
true. I got a few more coming up.
No more days off for the rest of the year. Her and Jane have PTO is canceled for the rest of the year.
Nope.
No more days off.
Nope.
It's fine.
That's not true.
They'll be here every single day, guys. You don't have to worry.
You're going to see some Jeb coming up.
How are you doing, Carlene?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Yeah?
Carlene, one of the busiest people in the building,
thank you.
doing her thing today. But so we're back. We have a lot going on in the news world, including weather. Mm-hmm. I mean, Becca's here. Becca was here yesterday. She didn't take yesterday off, so she was here. So I can't say Becca's back.
No vacation for Becca.
Your PTO is still on the table, Becca. So you're good. You're good. Carlene, not so much.
Not so much, apparently.
Okay, so this morning was pretty gloomy.
It was, definitely a cloudy start, but cool. So maybe not as muggy,
Yeah,
right? But we will see sunshine break out for the second half of the day, and overall should be a little bit cooler in the upper 80s, maybe a few locations touching 90. But overall, though, it's going to be a fairly mild work week going forward. Most of us still hanging on into the 80s.
Great.
So going to be feeling a little bit more like fall towards this weekend.
And you're keeping your eye on Hurricane Erin as well, right?
Yes, that certainly is the biggest weather talker, as Hurricane Erin now sustained winds at about 105 miles per hour, and it's moving northwest close to around 9, sitting 650 miles just southwest of Bermuda. So this is the newest 11 o'clock advisory. Look how explosive it is in terms of moisture and all of that rain coming from some of those outer bands. So timing this out for you, again, that latest track, keeping it well offshore of the Carolinas, still going to be hundreds of miles off the East Coast, but this is still going to be bringing coastal impacts to the Carolinas, such as high rip current risk. This will continue alongside the East Coast, but also some of the outer bands could produce tropical storm force winds, especially over towards Cape Hatteras, Morehead City, all the way down into Kill Devil's Hill. That's where we do have active tropical storm warnings, and this will continue over the coming days as Hurricane Erin continues to track to the north and west, eventually making that steer up to the east. We also have storm surge estimates, especially along the North Carolina coast, between 1 to 3 feet expected, but the Outer Banks is anywhere from 3 to 6. So Highway 12 has been a big talker, and of course some areas within Cape Hatteras have also had mandatory evacuations, and Highway 12 could become impassable once this hurricane continues to track to the north and east. So the biggest weather impact for the coast is going to be high surf, beach erosion, tidal flooding. This is going to continue not only for the Carolina coast, but for the East Coast as well. But the Outer Banks, since it's closest in proximity to Hurricane Erin, it's going to be hit the worst. Overwash and flooding is expected. Again, that is why they did have that mandatory evacuation. Winds along the coast will be around 20 to 30 miles per hour gusting, but alongside the Outer Banks, 40 to 60 miles per hour, especially late Wednesday into Thursday. So you can see that with futurecast winds. Look at that wind radius across Hurricane Erin. This is expansive. So this is Thursday, 9 a.m. You can see over towards Cape Hatteras, already gusting over 40 miles per hour. This will continue into late Thursday before eventually Erin steers out to sea, and winds will start to calm down as we approach this weekend. So you can see that wind field really brushing along the Carolina coast, not going to have any direct impacts on the Charlotte area as well. But again, we do have those tropical storm warnings out for those tropical storm force winds expected. In addition, the entire East Coast from Florida all the way to the Northeast encompass under a high rip current impact, and this could be dangerous conditions. I know there were a lot of water rescues yesterday, especially along South Carolina. Wilmington also had some water rescues as well. I know also a couple of Beaches over towards the Outer Banks have a double red flag, which means you cannot even get in the water. So if you know anyone alongside the beach today, definitely warn them and let them know that it is unsafe to enter into those waters. In addition, we're also watching a couple of systems coming off the coast of Africa. These low pressure systems do have a chance of tropical cyclone development. This is right behind Hurricane Erin, and just a reminder that this is really when the tropics start to heat up. Closer to home, live look outside over towards our WCNC roof cam. Clouds are starting to clear out there for most locations, not the same everywhere. A little bit cloudy up towards a higher elevation that is blowing rock, courtesy of resort cams. Still, though, pretty nice day. Right now, no rain to track on Doppler radar. There will only remain a stray shower in the forecast. Outside now, 78 in Charlotte, 78 in Rockingham, 74 in Boone, and 76 if you're listening over towards Hickory. Today will likely feel with the mugginess, lower to middle 90s, but at least not feeling like the upper 90s like it did for yesterday. Futurecast, this is the rain chances we have for today. Again, very minimal, only a stray shower in the forecast. So as we end out the work week, this is what you could expect. Upper 80s, lower 90s as we go into tomorrow and your Thursday. Lots of sun to go around and really minimal rain chances. As our next cold front starts to approach, it's going to bring more clouds, more moisture, and more rain chances as well. But that is going to cool us down near 80 degrees by Friday. And as we approach this weekend, it will still remain cool as those rain chances start to increase, lower to middle 80s. And next week, honestly, this could be our real first taste of fall, upper 70s to lower 80s, which I think after the hot last week and a half that we've been having, a lot of people are going to be excited about that. So 7-day forecast, again, minimal rain chances today, only a stray shower. We'll hang on into the upper 80s, lower 90s today through Thursday, cooling down Friday and into the weekend. I would say the pick of the weekend, maybe Saturday, mix of sunshine and clouds, lower 80s. Should be a nice day to get outside for any outdoor activities.
Oh, there are a couple of 5Ks happening on Saturday too.
Perfect.
So I'm not running in both 5Ks.
Me either.
I may be running in one. I don't know. I haven't made up my mind yet.
You haven't decided.
I haven't decided yet. Yeah, I haven't decided. I may. I'm going to the event.
Okay.
Don't know if I'm going to run.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
You can't blame it on the weather, I guess.
I can't blame it on the weather. It's actually a really like an ideal day, yeah, to do any sort of race. I mean, but and I brought it up yesterday about the Panthers game. My friends are going to the Panthers game.
Yes.
Good news for them.
Good news.
Good news for them. It looks like 20% rain chance. It was 30, I believe, yesterday. Yes. So. Okay, all right.
So that means the Panthers can't blame the weather either.
So I have a question, Becca.
Yes.
So when it comes to the game, okay, I'm stopped. I did this to her.
Here we go again.
I did this to her yesterday.
Also, Saturday's clear the shelters, so it'll be nice.
Clear the shelters, yes. Clear the shelters. Again, so much happening every weekend here in Charlotte. Becca, thank you for your time.
Of course.
Thank you for coming in for the podcast. All right. Okay, so let's shift gears now. So we are tracking a couple of things either happening live, about to happen live. So one of those things, the White House briefing. We're bringing this to you at least once a week, but we're waiting for this to start. Media is starting to gather here in the press room. The TVs are not on yet. Usually the TVs are the signal that it's about to start.
Yep.
Again, we're about 20 minutes away from it starting. And as this is happening, President Trump today offered his assurances that U.S. troops would not be sent to Ukraine to defend against Russia after seeming to leave open the possibility the day before. Now, Trump also said in a morning TV interview that Ukraine's hopes of joining NATO and regaining the Crimean Peninsula are, quote, impossible. I'm reading this report from AP News' website. So that is the latest there from the Trump administration as far as the situation involving Russia, Ukraine. As we brought you here on Live Impact News yesterday, all day yesterday, that meeting between President Trump and Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, a lot more diplomatic than the one in February, where the two were going at it. Also there at the White House, European leaders from Italy, France, again, a plethora of leaders, European leaders there at the White House to talk about peace when it comes to that conflict between Russia and Ukraine. So after that meeting and everything unfolded and all of the press conferences. Again, you heard from Zelensky, you heard from President Trump, you heard from other leaders. Our Vanessa Roof has actually got a good breakdown from a political science professor from UNC Chapel Hill about what this means, putting this all into context. In case you missed it, let's take you now to that conversation from yesterday.
Well, this is perfect timing because we've got UNC Chapel Hill Professor Graham Robertson speaking of these dialogues that have been underway here to try to, I guess, achieve some sort of relief, if not total peace in Ukraine. Graham Robertson, political science professor, but also someone who has done a lot of research and a lot of boning up, if you will, on what is going on in Eastern Europe. You also look at authoritarian regimes, so you've been kind of watching the dynamics in this region for quite some time. Any takeaways from what we've seen thus far today, Graham, regarding these meetings with the Ukrainian president and President Trump?
Well, I think, just the photo ops that you were talking about themselves, I think are really powerful and interesting. So a couple of takeaways. One, is that Zelensky showed up in a suit, not a tie this time, but with a suit nonetheless. It seems trivial, but it's actually a significant change from the way he typically dresses for international travel. Normally he wears military fatigues. And that to me is a sign of his the importance of winning support from the U.S. president for Ukraine and for President Zelensky personally. He's willing to go that extra little mile symbolically, knowing that these symbols matter a lot to President Trump, and he's willing to do that. The other thing that I think is really powerful is the number of European leaders that have shown up to mobilize leaders in this number and leaders of this stature. We have the President of France, we have the Prime Minister of the UK, Italy, Finland, we have the head of NATO. All these people showing up in the middle of their August vacations is pretty dramatic and shows how incredibly important this issue is for the Europeans.
Yeah, I mean, you brought up the suit. You mentioned, it seems like a small point, but we know in that last sit down, which I believe was in February, was the last time that they had sat down like this, and folks were watching this. This was being televised, this meeting. There was a criticism about what he was wearing from some. And there was also a point that was brought up about how, he allegedly didn't thank the U.S. enough for what it has done to support Ukraine through this war. And we were actually seeing during the sit down today more of that thanking, if you will. There was a letter that was from First Lady Melania Trump that was given to him, asking him to protect the children, and he thanked her for that. From my understanding, it sounds like European leaders actually coached him a bit in how to handle this current sit down that we're seeing right now.
Yeah, so in Europe, the Italian Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni, she has a reputation for being what they call a Trump whisperer. And so I'm sure she's also been, to the surprise of many, a very strong advocate for Ukraine. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if she had words with Zelensky. Also, Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister, is known for having a particularly good relationship personally with Trump. And I'm sure they were all working together to try and maximize. I know there was discussions amongst the Europeans about how best to present themselves. Do they all speak? Do they appoint one person to speak on their behalf? All of these different, very detailed issues of presentation, I think, have been addressed in the last, really in the last 48 hours.
I'm just kind of curious, your take on the optics of this meeting today compared to Friday. There was a lot of analysis, people reading into things by seeing how Russian President Vladimir Putin was treated upon his arrival in Alaska with like a literal red carpet rolled out, the ride in the presidential limo. And I think we were hearing, based on some of the reports that we were seeing from, our international reporters with NBC News, that there was somewhat of a dismay with Ukrainians watching this, seeing how Russia's leader was being treated. I guess what could you say as far as the optics of that versus the optics of this, and whether you can really read into something like that in a case like this?
So I was watching that very closely. You know, I was, like many others, was dismayed on Friday to see the leader of the United States welcoming on the red carpet an accused war criminal. Putin is wanted in 125 countries for war crimes that include the deportation of and abduction of children. And that for Ukrainians must have been incredibly hard to swallow. And I know that to stop this war, you have to talk to Putin, clearly. But there's ways of doing it, and I think that was really tough for people to see on Friday. The welcome at the White House is a different kind of a setup. The incoming presidents and prime ministers of the U.S.'s closest allies are met by the head of protocol. I understand that is actually standard protocol, and so that is sort of more the kind of thing you would expect to see. And so I wouldn't read too much into the difference between the two, but certainly the way Putin was greeted on Friday was intended to send a message that he's not an international pariah and that he's back in the international community. And I think that is very difficult for a lot of people to stomach.
Now, I mean, the other point that I see coming up pretty frequently, in recent days, the fact that there seems to be more of a stronger messaging about the potential that Ukraine may be asked to give up some of its land, to cede some of its land in order to receive peace, ultimate peace, at least for some time.
Right.
And I'm just curious your take, knowing kind of all of the historical context behind this, maybe even some of like the logistical and practical ways that might actually look.
Right.
I'm just curious what that would look like in reality and what that would mean, on a global scale.
So it's very, very complicated. It's very difficult for the Ukrainians to make these kinds of concessions. One thing is that I just conducted my own nationally representative opinion poll in Ukraine, just finished it last week, and we asked people about their willingness to trade territory for peace. And while people are very interested in peace, they're not interested in general in trading territory. You have to remember that hundreds of thousands of people have died at the front line. We don't know how many in the Ukrainian case, but we know the numbers are very, very substantial to defend the territory that they've been defending. And so to turn around and then cede some of that land that they have successfully defended to Russia is a very bitter pill to swallow. Secondly, one of the reasons why the Ukraine has been able to defend that land is that they built serious fortifications across Donetsk. Just walking back from those and retreating to a much less defensible position also seems from a strategic perspective to be a real challenge. So getting the military to actually do that is a big risk, and a big risk for Zelensky politically. There are very strong factions within the Ukrainian military who don't want to make these kinds of compromises, and Zelensky would have to try and somehow sell that, and I think it's a huge ask.
I would imagine too that there might be maybe some qualms from a general global perspective too, that maybe there might be countries that would say, well, this is the ultimate result of all of this fighting.
Right.
Would that really deter Russia from, trying this again?
So since 1945, the Europeans have, came to a settlement essentially of, they had three major wars in less than 100 years between France and Germany. And the way that was solved was by the creation of the European Union and an agreement that borders would not be changed by force. And that's been a guiding principle. It's not always been honored, but it's been a guiding principle of European security ever since. And so it's a huge deal for the Europeans to maintain that principle. The United States, the current administration has shown much less care about borders and to see them as much more flexible and fungible and changeable. And so I think there is a difference of opinion there, where for the Europeans, changing borders is a really serious matter. It has implications for all sorts of other potential conflicts and points of dispute, between Russia and NATO countries like Estonia. And so it's a Pandora's box that the Europeans are very, very keen to keep closed.
As someone who clearly has, made a life and a career out of studying, this particular realm, not only of, international relations, if you will, historical context, how pivotal is this moment that we're living right now in comparison to maybe, looking back over the decades and decades of international relations that have occurred around this specific region? How interesting is this to you, as someone who's kind of a student of that topic?
Yeah. I've been doing this for over 40 years, and I've never gotten bored with this region. There's always something happening, but this is definitely on a scale that's as big as anything that's happened since the end of the Cold War, since the Soviet Union collapsed at the end of 1991. And the new Russia emerged within different borders, and 14 new countries emerged on the 15 new countries on the territory if you include Russia. And so this is of that kind of proportion. It's an effort by Russia to reestablish its former borders, and it was no coincidence that the Russian foreign minister Sergei Lavrov showed up in Alaska wearing a T-shirt that had the letters SSSR, which is Russian for the Soviet Union, on his shirt. That was not an accident. And this idea of rebuilding the USSR, they're part of the imagery around the war that Putin has pushed, is a picture of a Soviet soldier atop the Reichstag, and the slogan is, "We can make it happen again." So this is really a Russia that sees itself as rising as a military power and as a political power, and is intent on regaining some of the territory it lost control over during the collapse of the Soviet Union. So it's incredibly important that Russia fail to do this in Ukraine. Otherwise, it'll set a really dangerous precedent going forward.
Now, one of the points that I've seen in recent reporting is the fact that the president, President Trump, he really does potentially have quite a few cards to play if there was, true will to maybe hit Russia where it hurts. I'd seen perhaps, tariffs on India that might inadvertently, hurt Russia and or cut off some funding supplies. I guess, how many cards do you think the president truly holds to kind of bend this in a certain direction? And if there are quite a few cards, why might he potentially be holding back on using those?
Right. I think we have fewer cards than we like to think we have. U.S. presidents going back to Obama have used sanctions as a tool against Russia, completely ineffectively. The Russians have adapted. It's been costly for them economically, but it hasn't done anything to weaken the regime. And in fact, Putin's regime is stronger now than it's ever been since before the sanctions. So I think we're sort of we love the idea of economic levers, because then we can do it without too much damage to ourselves, without too much risk. But I think in reality the economic levers are limited, which leaves you with military support. And we did give the Ukrainians very significant military support. It did help to change the direction of the war. We've since dialed that back down. We're now letting the Ukrainians buy weapons rather than providing them for free, and that makes that's weakened their hand significantly. And Russia has adapted militarily dramatically. So I think while the U.S. could play a big role in providing security guarantees and military support, it's really in that sphere that we do have some influence rather than in the economic sphere.
So we wanted to point out here, Graham, that one of the feeds that we've been watching, it looks like now we do have the president who has now stepped out. We're actually going to show folks over our chat here some of this video. So this is live as we speak here on Live Impact News. We can see on his side to his right, President Trump's right, as he's facing the camera. So our left here on the screen, we do have Volodymyr Zelensky, and then filing kind of in a line from left to right, we have other world leaders. So they're doing this photo op as we speak right now, and our understanding based on some of the scheduling that our reporting partners have received with NBC News, it sounds like there's going to be a bit of a photo op here at this moment, and then there will be more of a discussion with other European leaders. I guess what will you be watching to see after they emerge from this meeting? What sort of either visual tones and or messaging will you be on the lookout, to see later today?
Right. So I think there's two big issues that we might see some progress on. One is this question of whether or not we're going to pursue a ceasefire first, or whether we need a whole, peace deal. And allowing the fighting to continue while we pursue this peace deal. That is, that the Russians want to keep fighting. They don't want a ceasefire. And the Ukrainians want a ceasefire, and the Europeans want a ceasefire. So I think part of the purpose of this visit is to try and stiffen President Trump's spine on this issue. President Trump was pretty strong on the need for a ceasefire before he met with Putin in Alaska, and that seems to have been dropped as a result of his interactions with Putin in Alaska. So it'll be interesting to see what reference, if any, is made to ceasefires when they come back out. The other big issue is security guarantees. The Europeans understand that they will be providing the main sort of practical security guarantees for Ukraine in the event of a peace treaty going forward or a ceasefire going forward. But they will need to have those backed up by the United States. The United States is by far the most powerful military power at the table. And President Trump over the weekend actually indicated that he would be willing to do that, and was very vague about what that would actually mean in practice. But it would be to see to what extent there are any more details about that role and what the United States is willing to do on that front.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. Some really interesting dynamics here that we're watching right now. As we pointed out, for folks who are watching here on Live Impact News, we've got various feeds that we're keeping an eye on. Of course, just moments ago, we brought you the photo op with all the world leaders in attendance, and it looks like we're getting another feed from a different room where, if I had to guess, this is just based on some of the scheduling that we provided, this might be the sit down where we have the president meeting with the rest of the European leaders. So we'll definitely have that for folks here on Live Impact. Graham, we thank you so much for your time here. Any other insights you want to leave us with just on this overall topic, things that you really feel like viewers really need to know as we continue to watch this dynamic and this dialogue throughout the day, and of course in days and probably weeks and months to come?
Yeah, so I think my big takeaway over the last few days, and thank you for your time and the opportunity, has been that President Putin hasn't changed his negotiating position in months and months. And the offer that he made to trade peace for land that Russia has not yet taken, that's an offer you can't accept. You've heard the expression, offer you can't refuse, but this is one that Zelensky clearly can't accept, and Putin understands that. And that tells me that the Russians are not serious about having a deal. They're serious about continuing to fight, and they're serious about trying to kick these talks into the long grass and slow things down. And while that remains to be the case, then the prospects of peace are pretty slim.
Yeah. Well, Graham Robertson, we really appreciate your insights and your perspectives here. We definitely love to have you back here on Live Impact. Of course, we know this dialogue is going to continue. So we're always interested in making our viewers just a little bit more smarter about the topic. So thank you. We'll be in touch.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right.
Bye.
Yeah, I'll have to agree with Vanessa. Very great context on this situation, ever-evolving situation involving President Donald Trump and Ukraine and Russia, and if peace is something that will happen there in that conflict. So we will continue, obviously, to keep an eye on it. Also, as I mentioned at the top of the show, the White House briefing is happening, or is set to happen in just moments. TV screens, as you see right there, are on. So that is a signal that is about to start at any moment. The reporters are in place. So again, we will keep our eye on that, and we will have more from the press secretary in just moments. But aside from that, start of school, or I should say back to school, is underway.
Yep.
We've had several schools. At this point, I can't even keep up with the number of school districts.
A lot of them are back.
A lot of them are back. It was easy the first few weeks where we just had a couple, but a lot of school districts are back, South Carolina included, counties here in North Carolina. And the big one, CMS, they start back Monday. Kids, the forecast looks great, but you got to go back to school on Monday if you're in CMS. So CMS starts back Monday. A big moment for students and staff. Always a big moment when you go back to school, first day of school. So this morning we heard from the school district, the superintendent, also leaders within CMS about back to school, what they're looking forward to, some of their goals, and other things surrounding this new school year. In case you missed it, let's take you to it right now.
Everyone, and welcome to the CMS 2025-26 Back to School Media Briefing. We are so glad that you are here today. I am Dr. Ingrid Medlock, Chief of Staff and Community Engagement, and I'm also serving as the Interim Chief Communications Officer. We are so pleased to be here at CPCC. We'd like to thank Dr. Dietermeyer for allowing us to have this media briefing here. And we also want to thank Principal Eric Turner of the Central Piedmont Early College. He's with us this morning, and he's going to share just an overview of the program and why anyone in Charlotte should choose CMS, more specifically, the Early College. Principal Turner.
Thank you, Dr. Medlock. I am Principal Turner, and first of all, I just want to reiterate what Dr. Medlock said. Thank you to Dr. Dietermeyer and to Dr. Mitchell for your visionary leadership. Also, thank you to all of our partners at Central Piedmont Community College for the support that they give for our program. Central Piedmont Early College is a cooperative, innovative high school, and the question that I often get is, well, what is the difference between an early college and a middle college? And the primary difference is that early colleges begin in the 9th grade, and the middle colleges begin in the 11th grade. And students in our program, they are able to earn a high school diploma and earn their 24 high school credits in addition to their associate degree if they choose to do so. So those 60 additional credits that they can earn for their associate degree, most of our students earn those within their 12th grade. But our program is unique because our students can stay for a 13th grade if they need that additional time. So it's a built-in gap year for our students to be able to earn that associate degree if they choose to do so. One of the additional things that I'm very proud of is that we have unique partnerships throughout the community. So our students partner with the Sullenberger Aviation Museum, the Discovery Place, to provide work-based experiences. And we also know that high school is a lot, but high school is also workforce development. And so we are proud to have internships, paid internships for our students. And one of our primary partners is Wells Fargo, where we have juniors and seniors that are working at Wells Fargo in a variety of different fields. And so we're excited about those partnerships. We are also excited about that work-based experience. And we opened in 2023. And during our first year in existence, we exceeded expected growth on the state report card score. And then last year, we celebrated our first graduating class. We had students that attended colleges from Auburn to LSU to A&T to North Carolina Central and everywhere in between. We had students that went off to the military and that are doing the 3 E's that Dr. Hill talks about so often. So we started school last week with 345 scholars here and 100 students on our wait list. And so as we look at our school and we think about all of the opportunities available for them, we are going to conquer possibilities like Central Piedmont talks about and really communicates to their students, and we're going to provide endless possibilities for all of our students at Central Piedmont Early College. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Principal Turner. We really appreciate you giving us that overview of your program, and we thank you for allowing us to be here today as well. So let's get started. This morning you will hear from the leadership of Charlotte Mecklenburg Schools. We will start, of course, with our superintendent, Dr. Crystal Hill. And please know that everything that we discuss today is related to the opening of our school year, 2025-26. Once the panel finishes, you will have an opportunity to ask any questions. Susan Vernon Devlin will facilitate that process. So at this time, I introduce to you our superintendent, Dr. Hill.
Thank you, Dr. Medlock, and good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 2025-26 school year. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We're really excited to have you all here. Before we get started, I would like to honor our Board of Education. We are so honored that we have strong leadership in our district and would like to thank them for all of their support. Charlotte Mecklenburg Schools is really excited to begin yet another school year full of promise and, of course, full of endless possibilities for every single student. Our teams have been hard at work throughout the summer and even before the summer began, making preparations to welcome students to class for our traditional students on Monday, which is August 25th. Today we will share with you updates about our preparation and our readiness in the areas of operations, which of course includes facilities and grounds, transportation, and safety. We will also talk about staffing and vacancies, and also Infinite Campus, which is our new student information system. Before we get to those updates, I'd like to introduce Deputy Superintendent Dr. Melissa Bulknight. She is going to provide an overview of academics.
Thank you, Dr. Hill, and good morning. I'm happy that we are at this time Good morning again, and happy back to school time to our students, families, and staff. We are excited. Testing? Perfect. All right. Good morning. Third time's a charm, right? Yes. Good morning and happy back to school time to our students, families, and staff. We are excited to welcome students back for the 25-26 school year. This summer, more than 7,900 students and over 1,000 teachers participated in enriching programs across our district. Staff and students learned together, building momentum for a strong school year ahead of prepared learners and prepared educators. Next week, our educators will attend content-specific professional development on curriculum material strategies to prepare them for this. K-5 mathematics teachers and instructional leaders have been preparing to continue the implementation of illustrative math level content supported by CMS content specialists. In language arts, training has been closely connected to literacy research with a strong emphasis on applying the science of reading in both leadership decisions and classroom instruction. Secondary educators in math, language arts, and science have focused over strategies to foster productive classroom discussions and readiness for teaching the standards. These intentional learning opportunities ensure that our educators are well prepared, setting a strong foundation for a successful school year for every student. As we begin the year, we remain committed to creating classrooms that foster innovation, engagement, and deep thinking. To support this, we are asking students and families to follow the guidelines for personal technology devices, including cell phones, smartphones, smartwatches, and personal tablets. Parents, please take a moment to review the student code of conduct with your child so that our classrooms remain focused and supporting space. Our district teams and schools have been busy preparing to welcome families. In recent weeks, we have hosted numerous events for new students, and this week, starting today, we have our open houses. So we have middle school today, this evening, and then Wednesday, August the 20th, elementary schools, Thursday, August the 21st, high schools and K-8 schools. We encourage parents and families to attend these events with their children to meet teachers, learn about expectations, and build connections that will support student success throughout the year. In conversations with principals and staff, one theme is clear. Our educators are eager and ready to welcome students. In Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools, we are proud that our classrooms are centered on children and designed to provide the high-quality learning experiences every student deserves. At this time, I will turn it over to Chief Ivey, Chief of Operations.
Thank you, Dr. Bognight. Good morning. We are excited to begin the 25-26 school year with a focus on operational efficiency and safe, clean environments. As you know, safety is our top priority, and evidence from the annual crime data released by NCDPI shows that our layered approach to safety protocols and procedures is working. From the 2021-22 school year until the 2023-24 school year, we saw a decrease in 4 primary categories tracked by NCDPI. A 7.7% reduction in the total number of criminal acts, an 8.3 decrease in acts of crime per 1,000 students, a 49% reduction in possession of a weapon other than a firearm, and most significantly, a 69% reduction in possession of firearms from 29 to 9 in the 23-24 school year. The official data for the 24-25 school year will be released by DPI in December or January, and we anticipate that we will continue to see improvements in our safety data. This school year, all visitors will continue to check in using our visitor management system, which is actively monitored in all schools. SROs are on staff at all K-8, middle, and high schools, along with CMPD and CMSPD patrol officers who will routinely patrol our elementary schools as part of their daily routes. Students entering K-8, middle, and high schools will go through our walk-through security scanners. This year, we are excited to add a safety protocol called I Love You Guys. It refers to the last words texted from a daughter to her parents before losing her life in a serious school incident. The standard response protocol provides clear, consistent actions and language for schools to use in the event of an emergency. The protocol includes the use of common terminology and age-appropriate safety drills, transparent updates for parents during and after incidents, and collaboration with local emergency services. All school administrators receive training on the new standard response protocol at our summer leadership conference in June, and staff are being trained this week. Also, this October, we will host our first safety summit during School Safety Week. More information to come about this exciting event. And as we kick off this school year, remember that school safety is a community effort involving law enforcement, school staff, parents, and students. If you see something, say something. And before I move on to my next topic, I would like to introduce briefly our new Chief of Police, Jonathan Thomas, who's with us today at the press briefing. Now for a quick update on bond projects. This summer, the final 2017 bond project was completed with.
All right, so you're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturtevant. Time now 1:14, 1:15. So right now, right there is a CMS presser, back to school presser. They held a little earlier at Central Piedmont College, Community College in Charlotte, talking about back to school and how they're preparing for the start of school, which is Monday. But we want to shift away from that. We want to go to this White House briefing that just started. That is Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. Let's take a listen in to what she is saying right now.
The world further away from peace. President Trump rejected that failed approach and instead, over the last 7 months, has relentlessly pursued peace throughout his second term. And thanks to President Trump's efforts, we finally have movement after years of deadly gridlock. On Friday, as you all know, many of you were there, President Trump hosted Russian President Vladimir Putin in Anchorage, Alaska, for a bilateral meeting. This was the first time President Putin has been to the United States since 2015, and the first time he has met with an American president in years. President Putin publicly confirmed what President Trump has said all along. The war between Russia and Ukraine never would have started in the first place if President Trump were in office. This was always obvious to any person with a shred of common sense. Just look at what took place during the last 4 administrations. Under George W. Bush, Russia invaded Georgia. Under Barack Obama, Russia took Crimea. Under Joe Biden, Russia invaded Ukraine. But under President Trump, Russia did not invade nor take anything. President Trump is the only president this century, Republican or Democrat, who has held Russia in check and ensured peace in Europe. That's because Russia has always greatly respected President Trump and his peace through strength foreign policy approach. But overall, the bilateral talks in Alaska were very productive, and multiple key points were agreed to between the two leaders that truly opened up the door for Phase 2 discussions, which took place yesterday here at the White House, within 48 hours of that meeting in Anchorage, I may add. As you all know, there were many European leaders here, as well as Ukrainian President Zelensky. They all traveled here to meet with President Trump to maintain the momentum and work toward a lasting peace. Across the board, every leader credited President Trump for his decisive leadership that has reignited the dialogue in hopes of finally bringing this war to a peaceful conclusion. Two quotes in particular capture the progress that was made and the optimism moving forward. Finnish President Alexander Stubb said, "I think in the past 2 weeks, we've probably had more progress in ending this war than we have had in the past 3.5 years. Again, that is the president of Finland, a country that shares a border with Russia. That's what we call the President Trump effect. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte also summed it up well. Without President Trump, this deadlock with Putin would not have been broken. He is the only one who could do this. Following the encouraging conversations yesterday, President Trump spoke with President Putin by phone, and he agreed to begin the next phase of the peace process, a meeting between President Putin and President Zelensky, which would be followed, if necessary, by a trilateral meeting between President Putin, President Zelensky, and President Trump. As the president said, Vice President Vance, Secretary Rubio, and Special Envoy Witkoff will continue to coordinate with Russia and Ukraine to make this happen as soon as possible. It's very important to remember that before President Trump's landslide victory last November, there was no end in sight to this bloodshed. Now there may finally be light at the end of the tunnel and an opportunity for lasting peace. That's because President Trump is the peace president, and American leadership is back on the world stage. It should not be lost on anyone in this room that world leaders are coming right here to Washington, D.C. for help. While previous presidents have traveled halfway around the world to apologize for America, President Trump stands up for America, and he has firmly restored America's status as the undisputed leader of the free world. However, one thing that has absolutely not changed is the media's negative and downright false coverage of President Trump and his foreign policy accomplishments. From the beginning of this entire process, much of the left-wing media has been actively rooting against the President of the United States in the pursuit of peace. Initially, the media ridiculously claimed that President Trump was somehow beholden to Russia for even agreeing to have a face-to-face discussion with President Putin inside of the United States. The media said President Trump was making a grave mistake by, quote, legitimizing Putin. They were aghast that President Trump would treat another world leader like a world leader. The media relentlessly attacked President Trump and claimed he suffered a, quote, major defeat for not immediately emerging with a final agreement, even though he said heading into that meeting, this was a meeting to listen and to understand how to move the ball forward. All weekend following those historic U.S.-Russia bilateral talks, we listened to clueless pundits on television trying but failing to claim that the president had failed. The so-called experts in the foreign policy establishment, whose record is nothing but endless wars, trillions of wasted taxpayer dollars, and dead Americans, have the nerve to try and lecture President Trump, who has solved 7 global conflicts in 7 months, about peace. This is the same president, by the way, who brokered the Abraham Accords in his first term, on top of more than half a dozen other peace deals this year alone, as I just said. We also saw yesterday the president of Ukraine and all of the other major leaders of Europe fly across the Atlantic Ocean to meet President Trump at the White House because of the progress that was made, and that, if you ask the media, failed meeting, but it was not. It was highly productive and it was successful. This is why Americans' trust in the mass media is at a lowest point in more than 5 decades. Diplomacy is a delicate process, and instead of reporting the facts about what is happening here at this White House and what is happening between this president and other leaders around the world, many outlets in this room continue to try to actively undermine the president and sabotage the efforts towards peace. That is why I felt the need to set the record straight. In other news, on the home front, President Trump's efforts to make D.C. safe again are working. There have been a total of 465 arrests since the start of this operation on Thursday, August 7th. Last night, there were a total of 52 arrests, including the arrest of an illegal alien MS-13 gang member with convictions for DWI and drug possession. Thanks to President Trump's leadership and the outstanding work of both federal and local law enforcement, dangerous gang members like the one picked up last night will not be allowed on the streets of our nation's capital. Other arrests last night included assault with a deadly weapon for stabbing, parole violation for robbery, murder, outstanding warrant for attempted murder, assault on federal law enforcement officer, and felony assault. 4 more homeless encampments were also removed during yesterday's reporting period. To date, a total of 48 homeless encampments have been cleared in Washington, D.C. by multi-agency teams. MPD patrol units are actively working with city officials to locate and clear additional encampments and remove homeless residents off of Washington's streets. And despite fake narratives from the media, again, a significant number of the arrests have been in high-crime areas of D.C. In fact, nearly half of all of the non-illegal alien-related arrests have occurred in wards 7 and 8, the 2 wards that have the highest number of violent crime, as well as homicides and assaults with dangerous weapons last year. So while Democrats continue to coddle violent criminals, President Trump and this administration are focused on putting them behind bars and unapologetically standing up for the safety of law-abiding American citizens, and the White House will continue to provide all of you with the results of this operation in the days ahead. So with that, I will take your questions today. Here in our new media seat today, we have Jack Posobiec, who joined us in Anchorage, Alaska last week. Jack, thanks for being here. Why don't you kick us off?
Caroline, thanks so much. So a couple of questions regarding the status of these peace talks. Obviously, we saw the President and President Putin there in Anchorage. We saw the world leaders here yesterday with this summit. We've heard phrases like coalition of the willing. We've also heard Article 5-like guarantees. When it comes to the security guarantees, what is the current status of that? I know the President earlier today mentioned boots on the ground would be UK, France, Germany possibly, but unequivocally said no U.S. troops on the ground, but U.S. coordination. Can you elaborate on that, and what would the red lines be?
Sure. Well, you got to the heart of what I was going to say to all of you today on security guarantees, which is the President has definitively stated U.S. boots will not be on the ground in Ukraine, but we can certainly help in the coordination and perhaps provide other means of security guarantees to our European allies. The President understands security guarantees are crucially important to ensure a lasting peace, and he has directed his national security team to coordinate with our friends in Europe, and also to continue to cooperate and discuss these matters with Ukraine and Russia as well.
Helen, now, have the Russians responded at all? I know we spoke with President Putin last night. What has been their response? Because we've heard some reports from the Kremlin and others saying they're unequivocally against NATO troops on the ground.
Well, look, the President continues to have these conversations with both leaders. Those conversations took place in Anchorage, Alaska, again yesterday with the Europeans and President Zelensky, and he has directed his team to come up with a framework for these security guarantees that can be acceptable to help ensure a lasting peace and end this war.
And then just last question real quick on this. Regarding some of the funding, we're hearing questions about another round of weapons sales or possibly a round of U.S. purchases of Ukrainian drones. Will that money be funded by the U.S. taxpayers? Are we finally going to see an end to the U.S. taxpayer-funded, seemingly endless mandate for these foreign wars?
Well, the President is very sensitive to the needs of the American taxpayer, and immediately upon entering office back in January, he made it very clear that we're not going to continue writing blank checks to fund a war very far away, which is why he came up with the very creative solution to have NATO purchase American weaponry, because it is the best in the world, and then to backfill the needs of the Ukrainian army and the Ukrainian people and their military. So that's the solution the President has came up with. We'll continue to see that forward. As for any additional sales, I'll have to defer you to the Department of Defense.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Jack. Kelly.
What has President Trump learned that tells him that Vladimir Putin would be willing to make a deal for him, for President Trump?
Well, the President has learned a lot, which is part of the reason he opened up this dialogue. The previous administration, who oversaw the beginning of this war, refused to talk. And President Trump has always said, in order to learn, in order to move the ball forward with diplomacy and towards peace, you have to have open dialogue. And so that's why the President has had several conversations by phone and, of course, an in-person meeting last Friday with President Putin. He also has talked to President Zelensky dozens of times, had him here at the White House yesterday, and he's understanding what both sides want, what both sides are going to have to give up, and he has always said in order to get a good deal, both sides are going to have to walk away a little bit unhappy. So he continues to learn a lot throughout these conversations, which is why we've seen progress from both sides. And I would also just add, when it comes to learning and moving the ball forward, look at how both Russia and Ukraine have actually talked directly for the first time in many years, thanks to the efforts of this president and this administration.
Specifically for President Trump, though, what do you think Putin's motivation is to try to do something for President Trump, as opposed to just resolving the conflict?
I think, as I just spoke to in my opening remarks, Kelly, Russia and all countries around this world actually respect the United States again, and the president is using the might of American strength to demand that respect from our allies, our friends, our adversaries all around the world. And we've seen that not just lead to progress with Russia and Ukraine, but also we've seen it in the closing of 7 global conflicts around the world as well. We've seen it with the release of hostages in Gaza. You've seen it with the end of the conflict between India and Pakistan, which could have resulted in a nuclear war if we had not had a president who believed in the strength and the leverage that comes with the job of being the president of the United States of America. Rachel.
Thanks, Caroline. Heading into Alaska, a lot of the focus in the talk was on this trilateral meeting between these 3 leaders. Can you explain how this went from a trilateral meeting involving President Trump to now the focus being on this bilateral meeting without the president first?
Well, look, the president has spoken to both leaders about this, and both leaders have expressed a willingness to sit down with each other. And so our national security team will help both countries do that. Ultimately, the president has always said that there are areas of disagreement in this war that will have to be discussed and decided upon by these 2 countries. And so he wants these 2 countries to engage in direct diplomacy. He's said that from the very beginning, which is why he's agreeable to the idea of having President Zelensky and President Putin get together. And I understand accommodations for that meeting are underway. As soon as we hear more details, we'll be sure to let all of you know.
And just a quick follow-up. We know as of right now there is no ceasefire in place. We've seen Russia continue its attacks on Ukraine. What indications is the president getting from Putin that he wants to have this meeting with Zelensky soon?
Because he spoke to him directly yesterday.
And he expressed that sooner rather than later.
He spoke to that directly yesterday, and the president put that in his statement that he gave to all of you, the news media, knowing you'd be asking following that conversation in the effort of transparency. Haley.
Hey, thanks, Caroline. You made clear note U.S. boots on the ground. Is the president considering U.S. boots in the air as a form of a security guarantee?
Look, that was something the president mentioned on his interview this morning. It is an option and a possibility. I won't certainly rule out anything as far as military options that the president has at his disposal. I'll let him do that. I can tell you he's definitively ruled out boots on the ground. Sure.
Thanks, Tara. Just about the possible venue for the talks, can you confirm that Putin suggested Moscow as a venue for the bilateral talks? And if so, doesn't that indicate that Putin is perhaps not serious about this, that he's suggesting a venue that there's no way that Zelensky is going to go to?
Look, I'm not going to litigate the private conversations between the president and President Putin, aside from what the president himself has already spoken on, but I can tell you there are many options that are being discussed by our national security team right now with both parties.
Can you give us an indication of where?
I just told you we'll provide you details as soon as we can. Thank you for trying, though. Libby.
Thank you, Caroline. I wanted to ask about the National Guard troops. How is the White House coordinating with how they're being placed in D.C., what areas? And then also, how long should people here in the district anticipate the National Guard to be on the ground patrolling the streets?
I don't have a timeline for you, Libby, but we will keep you posted on that. I think the president, as you know, and this administration, he came to this briefing room with members of his cabinet to lay out the rationale and the reasoning for federalizing the National Guard here in Washington, D.C., and for our work with the Metropolitan Police Department to make our district safer. We've seen violent crime has taken the lives of far too many residents here in our nation's capital, and the president wants to make it safe again. And as for the coordination efforts, this interagency team is meeting and talking daily. In fact, there's a meeting taking place right now in the West Wing with members of the interagency task force to continue to discuss not just the National Guard deployment, but also also how we can continue to remove public safety threats off of the streets of Washington, which, as the numbers I just showed you prove, they are doing every single night. I will just reiterate, 465 total arrests and counting since the start of this operation. I believe 11 or 12 days ago, I'll have to check the calendar, but those are pretty remarkable results. If not for this task force and their high level of coordination and the leadership of this president, there would have been 465 more violent criminals on the streets of this capital that you all live in every day. So I think we should all be very grateful for that. Stephen.
Thank you, Caroline. 3 questions about the D.C. crackdown.
Sure.
First, I was wondering if you could clarify something President Trump said. He mentioned getting rid of the slums where criminals live. Was he talking about tents or permanent residential buildings? And then the mayor has expressed an interest in clarifying how much of a focus illegal immigration enforcement is as part of this crackdown. Can you say anything about that?
Sure.
And third, any preview on the beautification?
3 questions. I'll try to answer all 3 of them pointedly for you. First, when it comes to what you said and the president said, the slums of Washington, D.C., he's referring to the most dangerous communities, neighborhoods, and streets in the city where, unfortunately, violence has ravaged these communities and taken the lives of, again, far too many law-abiding D.C. residents. We know on July 5th of this year, just more than a month ago, a 3-year-old beautiful young girl was shot and killed in her car with her family in one of these communities, which is why there has been a surge, despite what many of you have been falsely reporting. And I believe it was the Washington Post who put out a map claiming it to be fact-based when it was just based on, I don't know, accounts that they've heard on the street, not actual statistics and data. So we went and reconfigured the numbers, and as I said, nearly half of all the non-illegal alien-related arrests have occurred in wards 7 and 8 in the District of Columbia, where we know, excuse me, there's the highest rate of crime. So we'll continue to do that. And what was your second question, Stephen?
Legal immigration, how much of a focus that is?
Yeah, look, I mean, the focus is to make D.C. safe and beautiful and to remove public safety threats and violent criminals from our streets. If federal law enforcement, with the help of the Metropolitan Police Department, come across illegal aliens, of course, we are going to abide by this administration's policy of law and order, and we are going to remove illegal criminals from our nation's capital. They will be detained and deported, just like they are in every other community across the country. Kristen.
First question is, whose idea was it to change the next steps from a trilateral to a bilateral meeting?
It was an idea that evolved in the course of the president's conversations with both President Putin, President Zelensky, and the European leaders yesterday. And as you saw, Kristen, with all of those European leaders leaving the White House, including the NATO Secretary General, they all agreed that this is a great first step. And it's a good thing that these 2 leaders are going to be sitting down together, and the president expects that to happen.
And how long is Trump willing to wait and operate in good faith for Putin to actually arrange a meeting before he intervenes?
Look, the president has put tremendous public pressure to bring this war to a close. He's taken actions, as you've seen, sanctions on India and other actions as well. He's made himself very clear that he wants to see this war end, and he has scoffed at the ideas of others that have been raised that we should wait another month before any meeting takes place. The president wants to move, and he wants to bring this war to an end as quickly as possible.
Just a clarification on something you said earlier about Putin agreeing to the meeting. The Kremlin seemed to indicate that Putin did not firmly.
All right, so you're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. We are a few minutes past the bottom of the hour, 1:34. Right there, you're watching live. Caroline Leavitt, White House press secretary. The White House briefing is happening as we speak. But let's shift away from that. We want to talk about back to school. We showed you a bit of that press conference before we got to the White House briefing. CMS talking about how they are preparing for the first day of school, which is Monday. So kids, this is your last week. Enjoy the rest of this week and this weekend, because you're going back to school on Monday.
Like it or not, ready or not.
Ready or not, you're going back to school on Monday. We have Miles Harris here, who was at that press conference. Miles, superintendent, other district leaders were there. Give me your takeaway from that press conference.
Yeah, I mean, obviously a lot of changes really going into the school district this year, but I'm going to go ahead and break down what some of the big ones are, especially what parents and families can do even before that first day on Monday. I know it sounds weird even saying that, like, these school buses are about to start filling up these streets here pretty soon.
Right.
Really, really soon here. But one of the biggest takeaways that we got from this was, number one, is that they actually will have a new parent portal for families, and it's called the Infinite Campus. app. So that was replacing what was the Power School app. That gives families access to looking at grades, assignments, scheduling. But what is new with this one and what's actually cool about this app is that you can actually fill out all the paperwork that you need to do before that first day through this app. And so they're actually encouraging, the school district is encouraging families to get onto this app, get familiar with it, do all that, but even before you go to open house, so that really the school year can get off to a swimmingly smooth start for the kids, for the teachers, for the district, everybody. So that's a really, really big change and adjustment that they're still working through a little bit. Obviously, anytime there's a new app, might be a little kinks, things like that. But for the most part, this overall will have a lot of benefits for families, for students, for the district. But that's not the only app that they were talking about as well. They have another app called Parent Square that they were talking about as well. That helps the communication when it comes to families and parents, as well as the school district as a whole. That's how that's an open line of communication. And then they also unveiled or rolled out another app called School Safety, or I Love You Guys, which is when there's emergencies, when there's lockdowns, when there's things like that. This app is supposed to also open another line of communication, letting families and parents and also students aware of really what's going on. So that was some of the biggest ones when it comes to those apps. When it comes to, obviously, there's a question that always goes on, whether it's CMS or other districts, what are the teacher vacancies look like, right? There's a lot of those, and they still have over, I want to say, 200 teacher vacancies, but their fill position rate was over 97%, which is very, very good. I mean, it really, really is, and very impressive, especially if we look at even the years removed from COVID, just how much of an impact that was. So still seeing a lot of improvements there, but obviously there's still more work to be done. They have talked about some of the things that they had done in the summertime to obviously help beef up that number, and they're still working with that, whether that's career fairs, whether that's other programs, just trying to obviously fill as many of those classrooms with teachers as they can. But I mean, that's a handful of some of the stuff that they talked about, but I mean, a lot of things are coming when it comes to the school year, Nick.
Did they at all address anything that may have happened at the end of last year? I know there was some principal resignations or anything regarding that.
Not a whole lot of deep dive into the past year. I
asked that because it was sort of plagued the last part of or the end of last school year.
Yeah, and and again, they talked a little bit more specifically on really how they were dealing with whether it was teacher vacancies or even bus driver vacancies, how they're trying to make sure that they closed off as many as those routes are concerned. We also asked about how they plan to address ICE, if there's any of those operations going on in and around those campuses as well. And we'll have that in our story later on this evening, just because I think that's a question that a lot of parents and families want to know. Hey, because we're seeing whether they're at schools or whether they're at churches, whether they're at events, like there's always those talks about those as well. So getting a chance to ask the district about that one as well was also an interesting put as well. But I think the biggest takeaway and the biggest adjustment was that line of communication that they're trying to adjust and change, whether that's in case of emergencies or whether it's just having access for those grades, assignments, scheduling. This Infinite Campus app is supposed to be a big difference maker when it comes to the district, but also for these families as well.
I hear you say that, and it's so. I think back to it's obviously we're all right around the same age. Like when we were in say elementary, middle school, high school, we didn't have the online platform. I don't remember that.
You always had to wait till the week of the quarter was ending to give your parents the grade, good or bad. Mine was good for the most part. Say that. My mom made sure I was getting good grades. I want to say that. But seriously though, it's so interesting to see that even the usage of cell phones when they can and cannot be used. That was never a thing when we were in middle school or high school now too. But when you consider these emergencies and when you consider these apps and these accessibility, they have to have some level of that for kids even though too. And so to hear these districts address these things and these adjustments like you're talking about, Nick, it's interesting, and whether you have a kid or not, you're really intrigued on kind of how these districts really plan to tackle those issues as well.
I didn't get my first cell phone until my sophomore year in high school. And it was a flip phone at that. So we were not really, we were texting a little bit, but it really wasn't.
T9 texting. Does anybody remember what that was?
It wasn't really what it is now. And then you have all the social media platforms right there in the palm of your hand. So it's so different. It blows my mind how different it is now.
Yeah. And again, it's a growing need though too. And I know that, for example, even Bree had done a story this morning in regards to how AI is going to be implemented. That was also a topic of conversation with this though too. And so so I feel like this is the second time that I've covered this. I covered the briefing last year. This one had a lot more elements, I would say, as far as adjustments or changes. And it's even crazy because whether they were talking about AI or the teacher vacancies, they're like, these numbers are going to fluctuate. And like going back to what you were asking about with the principals and stuff, we might talk about this number now. It could change in 2 weeks. For the better or for the worse. And so them having a plan or talking about that plan and just kind of seeing how they're trying to adjust with any of these changes was an interesting takeaway as well. But they're trying to address the moving parts as best as they can, though, honestly, I'd say.
Miles, before I get you out of here, when can folks check out your story on TV?
4 and 5 o'clock tonight.
4 and 5 o'clock. And obviously, you can catch the story on our digital platforms after it airs. Miles Harris, it's been a while since we've seen each other.
Appreciate you, twin. Come on,
Hey, twin. Hey, man. Thank you for stopping by the studio. I haven't seen Miles in the newsroom in a while. He's been a busy guy, so I understand. So, look, I understand Miles.
Doing his job.
I'm doing my job.
He's doing his job.
That's
That's what I'm saying. He's doing
Thank
his
you,
job.
Carlene. I appreciate it. No, but thank you guys. Yeah, seriously, I appreciate it. Yeah. So.
Miles Harris, thank you again. 4 or 5, you can catch the story. Interesting stuff there. All right, so let's go back now to the White House. Press briefing is happening right now. There's Caroline Levitt right there on your screen. This is happening live here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Let's take a listen in.
Are there other conflicts that the president's working on right now that are off the radar screen that we should be tracking?
In fact, there are many. The State Department is always working around the clock under the leadership of Secretary Rubio and keeping the president apprised of conflicts that are bubbling up all over the world. But of course, as you all know, as we've talked a lot about in this briefing, he's spending a lot of time right now on ending this war in Russia-Ukraine, and of course the conflict in Israel and Gaza, which he wants to see come to a close as well. Sure, go ahead.
So the president says that he's starting a movement to eliminate mail-in voting, but states administer elections, not federal authorities. So can you provide any more details about how the White House plans to eliminate that?
The White House continues to work on this, and when Congress comes back to Washington, I'm sure there will be many discussions with our friends on Capitol Hill and also our friends in state legislatures across the country to ensure that we're protecting the integrity of the vote for the American people. And I think Republicans generally, and the president generally, wants to make it easier for Americans to vote and harder for people to cheat in our elections. And it's quite mind-boggling that the Democrat Party could stand in opposition to common sense. He wants to ensure election integrity. There were great efforts that were made in 2024. I won't get ahead of myself for Hatch Act reasons to get ahead for the next election, but I can assure you this is a priority for the president. Go ahead.
If I could just follow up on your comments about Gaza.
Sure.
There was a ceasefire proposal put forward by both Qatar and Egypt. Hamas accepted it on Monday. Israel has yet to officially weigh in. I'm wondering if the U.S. was at all involved in it, if it's supportive of it, and whether or not the president believes Israel should accept it.
I don't think it's a coincidence that Hamas accepted this proposal after the President of the United States posted a very strong statement about this conflict on Truth Social yesterday. I would refer you back to that statement. As for this proposal that Hamas has now accepted, the United States continues to discuss it, and I'll let the President weigh in on it definitively. You're welcome. Sure.
Caroline, can you describe the President's perspective on taking a stake in Intel in exchange for federal grants? And is this are we expecting to see the White House make similar arrangements with other semiconductor companies and manufacturing companies?
Well, the president, he's been very clear about the need to reshore manufacturing that's critical to our national and economic security. That is especially in regards to chips and semiconductors, which is why the president has initiated the Commerce Department to conduct a study on semiconductors, a Section 232 investigation, so we can ultimately implement tariffs. And it's why our export license requirements remain in place as well. As for this 10% government stake deal, the Department of Commerce continues to work on it. I know Secretary Lutnick is working on it and ironing out the details, but the president wants to put America's needs first, both from a national security and economic perspective, and it's a creative idea that has never been done before to ensure that we're both reshoring these critical supply chains while also gaining something of it for the American taxpayer. You're welcome. Emily.
Thanks, Caroline. I wanted to ask about the 3 U.S. warships that are being sent to Venezuela, and there's 4,000 Marines on board. Are you looking at possibility of boots on the ground there?
What I will say with respect to Venezuela, President Trump has been very clear and consistent. He's prepared to use every element of American power to stop drugs from flooding into our country and to bring those responsible to justice. The Maduro regime is not the legitimate government of Venezuela. It is a narco-terror cartel. In Maduro, it is the view of this administration, is not a legitimate president. He is a fugitive head of this cartel who has been indicted in the United States for trafficking drugs into the country. And with that, I will leave you all, and we will see you later, if not tomorrow, and I look forward to taking more of your questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Caroline.
Thank you.
All right, you're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. That right there was the White House briefing that just wrapped up. A little shorter than usual, I have to say. But again, that just wrapped up there. Caroline Leavitt, White House Press Secretary. We want to take you back now to the CMS press conference that happened this morning. It happened at Central Piedmont Community College. We had Miles on. He was talking about some of the things that they were talking about preparing and some of the advancements in technology that CMS is working to get ahead of. You catch the story at 4 and 5. But again, let's go back now to that press conference in case you missed it.
Preschool campus. The first 2023 bond project, the Montessori conversion of the former Sedgefield Elementary School, is ready for students to return. Work is also underway at South Mecklenburg High School, Northwest School of the Arts, Billingsville Elementary, Cotswold Elementary, Marie G. Davis, New Number 1, and First Ward Creative Arts. This year, First Ward will serve the middle school grades arts program that was relocated from the Northwest School of the Arts. Northwest will serve high school students, and University Park will support the elementary school arts program. For more information on the 2017 and the 23 bond, please visit cmsbondconstruction.com. In facilities, we're excited that Davis and K-8 will open as an elementary school this year, with the 6th through 8th grade students attending Bailey Middle School. We will welcome students from Dorothy J. Vaughan to Parkside Elementary as an elementary STEM magnet. And our building services team completed over 8,000 work orders addressing school and office needs throughout the summer to ensure our facilities are ready for students and staff on August 25th. Capital maintenance projects included new HVAC units in 9 schools, new roofs for 3 schools, several paving and flooring projects, as well as LED lighting replacement at several sites. Custodial services has also completed cleaning at all schools. In school nutrition, the nutrition team has been working hard to support health and well-being of our students with delicious new menu options. This year, we're introducing a new veggie. CMS students with meal prices remaining unchanged. Students at 115 community-eligible provision schools will receive meals at no cost. The list of CEP schools is available under School Nutrition Services on the district site. And students attending non-CEP schools will need to complete a meal application to be considered for free or reduced lunch benefits. The online applications are available on the CMS website under Families, then School Nutrition Services. Transportation, we have over 105,000 students assigned for transportation with 858 buses expected to hit the road on Monday. We currently have 97 driver vacancies, but do not anticipate any impact since all routes are covered for the first week of school. We want to remind parents to download the Here Comes the Bus app and use the Alpha Route via cmsk12.org/buses. Everyone is also
All right, so you're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. We are approaching the top of the hour. We are chugging along, almost there at 2 o'clock. It's 1:55 now. Look, we had Becca in here earlier. I mentioned it was a gloomy start to the day. We don't have any windows in here, so I can't tell what it looks like.
I couldn't tell you what outside looks like.
Yeah,
I miss outside. I've said it before. I miss it.
From this window view, I can sort of see it still looks gloomy.
Like, this is our studio, guys.
This is no windows.
There's no
here.
windows.
We're not complaining. We just don't have any windows in here, so it's hard for me to say, hey, it's sunny outside.
We don't know.
We don't know. But look, we want to get a check on the forecast. The people who actually know.
Yeah.
So let's check
Look
in.
at a window for me if you can.
I think I'm gonna pop outside when we go to weather. Here's a majestic store with our full forecast.
Well, good Tuesday afternoon to you. I'm WCNC meteorologist. Majestic storm, and all eyes continue to watch what is Hurricane Erin. I'm going to give you the details of what we know about it now and watch the track of it, walk you through it all, and then we'll switch over to our local forecast. This is the 11 a.m. advisory. Hurricane Erin's about 600 to 700 miles away from North Carolina. Right now, it stands as a Category 2 hurricane. Now, it's not as strong as it was on Saturday, thankfully, when it reached its max of a Cat 5 hurricane, but it's still holding 105 mile per hour max sustained winds, 125 mile per hour wind gusts. Now it's going to continue to move a bit more to the north and to the west, but over the next 36 hours, look at how close it gets to the Carolinas, and this is concerning. Now we're still confident that it's not going to make landfall, that the center of Erin is not going to continue to shift more northward and more westward towards the Carolinas, but we're concerned that those outer bands will bring some big impacts to the coastal communities. Let me walk you through the track of this. Keep in mind this cone right here is a good indication where we could see the center of Erin. It does not talk about those outer bands and the impacts that we're likely going to get. Now I think we're going to get the greatest impacts across North Carolina Wednesday night and into really all day on Thursday before really Erin starts to curve more north and east and head back out to the Atlantic. A few things we're watching. What are the impacts that we need to be prepared for? Remember, this is mainly our coastal communities. We will not get great impacts as we're looking at the Charlotte metro area, thankfully, but we're looking at very, very strong winds. I want to fast forward you into our time. Again, this is going to mainly ramp up for the Carolinas Wednesday night and into Thursday. This is early Thursday morning where some of those winds could gust up. Actually, they could be max sustained winds 50 to 60 miles an hour, especially out towards the Outer Banks. That's going to be the main focus of concentration as to where we could see the greatest impacts, and this will last really for hours up and down the coastline of North Carolina. Again, the Outer Banks really going to get hit the worst with those impacts. Coastal flooding is going to be a big concern as well, as our wave heights are incredibly high. Now within the center of Erin, it's not out of the question that we won't see some of those waves reach over 30 feet high, but you can see across the coastline of North Carolina about 10 to 20 feet, so very damaging and dangerous wave heights. Storm surges anywhere from 1 to 3 feet for North Carolina, but specifically for the Outer Banks about 3 to 6. So this is very important for people to take seriously. It's very dangerous and it could be deadly if you're not taking it seriously. Again, this is what we're watching for when it comes to the impacts of Hurricane Erin. High surf, beach erosion, and tidal flooding along the entire coast. The Outer Banks likely going to see the worst of it. A lot of flooding ahead. 20 to 30 mile per hour winds along the coast with 40 to 60 across the Outer Banks. Remember, this is our 5th named storm of the season, our first hurricane, and Erin really met its peak on Saturday as a Category 5 hurricane. Meanwhile, it's been a cloudy start for us. We'll see some sunshine later today, sunshine tomorrow, and then as we're looking towards the weekend, we will see a little bit more rain and storm chances. 80s by the afternoon, that's really right around where we should be for this time of the year. Rain chances over the next 10 days look like this. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, about a 30% chance, so keep that in mind if you're making those weekend plans. Here's that 7-day forecast. Get outside and enjoy that sunshine today. It's going to be warm and muggy though, and then we will increase our clouds and our rain chances over the weekend. Stay close to the WCNC weather team. We'll keep you up to date with the very latest.
I like the music. I just wanted to milk that. And
nice music. music.
It is nice music, and that was a decent shot of Lake Norman, as you can see there. And as I went to check outside, it is still gloomy, but it is not raining, so that's a bit of good news because we waterlogged last week. We had a lot of rain last week. So Majestic mentioned it, Hurricane Erin, which became a hurricane Friday and really just picked up steam over the weekend. So there are a lot of questions on hurricanes, especially we're in the thick of hurricane season, how they form. So Chris Mulcahy is making us smarter with his weather IQ on how hurricanes form. Let's take a listen into that.
June 1st officially begins the 183-day hurricane season that ends on November 30th and peaks September 10th. But for them to form, conditions have to line up, and the better they do, the stronger they become. Let's raise your hurricane IQ. Let's bake a hurricane. Here are the basic ingredients you need. 1. A pre-existing weather pattern. 2. Surface water temperatures of 80 degrees Fahrenheit or warmer. 3. A low wind shear environment. And 4. The atmosphere has to be juiced up with a lot of moisture. Okay, let's bake a hurricane. Over warm waters, rising moisture condenses into cold air, forming multiple thunderstorms. This low left undisturbed will eventually start to rotate into a low pressure system due to the spin of the earth. More air rushes in and more thunderstorms release heat and power into the storm. When the circulation becomes a closed low with a well-defined center, the storm officially is a tropical cyclone. When maximum surface winds are 38 miles per hour or less, it'll be numbered as a tropical depression. Winds at 39 to 73 miles per hour are tropical storm strength. At this point, a storm gets a name. Once winds within a storm reach 74 miles per hour, a hurricane is born. This is the ideal structure of a hurricane. Too much wind shear will disrupt the formation. The faster these warm core storms will spin, the more likely the eye wall will form. The strength of a hurricane is measured using the Saffir-Simpson scale. Category 3 or greater is classified as a major hurricane, causing devastating and catastrophic damage. All tropical cyclones, regardless of wind speeds, can bring an extensive amount of rainfall and flooding, especially the slower they move. With WCNC Charlotte, I'm meteorologist Chris Mulcahy. We're now all a little bit more weather-wise.
Again, that was our Weather IQ with Chris Mulcahy, making us smarter and in the world of weather. Again, we are in the thick of hurricane season, so it's very important, hurricane season or not, to make sure that you stick with us here on WCNC Charlotte. Our Weather Impact team, they always have a great breakdown, great context, and great forecasting by our folks on what you guys can expect out there as you're going out and about throughout your day. All right, so let's shift gears. We'll stay here at home. We want to update you now on a breaking news story from this morning out of Union County. So a person was shot by a Union County deputy who was responding to a domestic dispute in Wingate early this morning, this according to officials. WCNC Charlotte's Walker Lawson is outside of the Union County Sheriff's Office. With more on this, Walker, what can you tell us this afternoon?
Well, yeah, guys, so what we know this morning is the officers were called to a domestic dispute around 4 a.m. When those officers responded, one officer fired at an individual involved in this dispute. Now, again, law enforcement informed us that this is a home that they have responded to multiple times before for domestic dispute situations. Now, what we know is all of the deputies that were involved and the people that were involved in this dispute are all okay. One person that was shot, again, was treated at the hospital and is in stable condition. That is the latest that we know from this morning. We have not received an update from law enforcement, though, since right around that time frame, around 9 this morning.
All right, so that's Walker Lawson live there in Union County for us. Walker will be live at 4 and 5. Walker, thank you for your time. All right, so we will get more from Walker on this story. Again, as more details come in, we will update you here on WCNC Plus, of course. But again, you can catch Walker's story at 4 and 5, and then on our digital platforms. All right, let's go. Do we want to go back to CMS, or do we want to go to, we've been keeping an eye on a couple of different things. We want to go to this in Wilmington. So this is happening in Wilmington. We are still trying to piece together details. As I am speaking right now, we are looking for information, what we have
I think I might have found something. So
You may have found something.
yeah,
Okay.
take a look at your
This
chat.
is a live camera. This is a traffic camera from NBC affiliate there in Wilmington. I promise I am not trying to be secretive, just trying to make sure you get the right information. You believe this is the right?
I believe.
Okay. So what's happening in Wilmington right now? Again, we're trying to piece together exactly what this is you're looking at and see if there's any connection to this story. I just want to preface that. So emergency crews in Wilmington are responding to an explosion near New Center Drive in Wilmington. Authorities say that a car hit the Eastern Carolina Veterinary Referral Building there on New Center Drive and ruptured a gas line at around 11:30 a.m. Wilmington police said a driver was turning into Bob King when they went off the road and hit the gas line to the building. Officers tell us the driver left the scene but was quickly located and taken into custody. Wilmington Police Department also stated that 3 firefighters were injured while battling the fire. One of those firefighters has severe burns on their hands. So again, that is information that we have so far from Wilmington. It's breaking news out of Wilmington, North Carolina, out there on the coast. We have the shot here. We believe these two stories, this shot and this story that I just talked.
According to
Yeah.
NBC's drop down, it is matching up saying car hit building.
Okay.
So
this should be the same scenario, but again, I just wanted to put that out there. We want to be as transparent as possible. But again, a situation there involving firefighters being injured while battling a gas explosion is all started as a car hit a building and ruptured a gas line there on New Center Drive. And the building is Eastern Carolina Veterinary Referral Building there on New Center Drive. So we will continue to keep our eye on this as we work to get a better shot, get more video, more information, of course, here on Live Impact News. So again, that is breaking news out of Wilmington, North Carolina on our coast. We will continue to keep our eye on that. All right, so let's take you back to CMS. Again, we're preparing for a big day for students and staff and families here in Charlotte Mecklenburg schools, because school starts back on Monday. A lot of things. Miles Harris was here last hour. He was at this press conference, CMS, their back to school press conference. They talked about a lot of the new technology they're working through as far as communicating with parents, also AI in the classroom, and then the concerns surrounding ICE is a few of the topics that CMS officials addressed during this press conference. So we wanted to take you back there. We've been playing it on and off this afternoon, but from where we left off, here you go. Here's that press conference from earlier.
Express stops will be in place this year for all high school magnet programs. And I also want to emphasize that it is illegal and extremely dangerous to pass a stopped school bus with its stop arm extended. For more information on transportation, including a chart that outlines when transportation services will be available based on when students are registered for transportation, visit the CMS website under the Transportation Department. And lastly, I want to encourage everyone to please be cautious next week as our 141 plus thousand students head back to school. As school buses, teenage drivers, and parents transporting students back and forth to school are reintroduced to the Mecklenburg County traffic pattern, we ask that everyone practice patience and be alert as we welcome families back to CMS. I'd like to this time introduce Dr. Keisha Collins, Chief Human Resource Officer.
Thank you, Mr. Ivey. Good morning. We are pleased to be welcoming 736. Good morning.
schools. This year, we continue to invest in and strengthen several strategic initiatives designed to recruit and retain outstanding educators to CMS. One key initiative is our extensive teacher onboarding experience, which is the most in-depth experience currently offered in our region for teachers. Over the past several weeks, 660 teachers participated in our second annual Crown Academy, a comprehensive orientation and onboarding program for teachers. We have truly hit the jackpot with the teachers and staff who have chosen CMS, and we thank them for their commitment to the students and families of Charlotte, Mecklenburg County. We've held 8 in-person or virtual career events since March, as well as conducted numerous marketing campaigns to support hiring for all of our schools and departments. Our CMS Teaching Residency Program, which is our own district-sponsored educator preparation program, continues to be a strong pipeline for teacher vacancies. The program is set to support its largest cohort yet, with 266 teacher residents for the 25-26 school year, all of whom have been hired for teaching positions and will be closely supported as they work toward becoming fully credentialed. These strategies, along with others, have led us to currently have 97.6% of teacher positions filled. Now, I would like to introduce Dr. Candace Salmon-Hosey, Chief Technology Officer.
Thank you, Dr. Kahn. Good morning. Charlotte Mecklenburg School Systems is entering the 25-26 school year with significant progress in artificial intelligence, technology access, and system readiness. Building on extensive stakeholder input, CMS is strengthening responsible AI use, ensuring equitable device access, and completing key infrastructure updates to support future innovation. We are advancing into the next phase of AI implementation with system-wide training, adoption of the state's Student AI Use Continuum, and the launch of AI schools to pilot innovations. This summer, we achieved one-to-one device access for Camp CMS students, equipped 660 new teachers with laptops, and deployed infinite campus kiosks in every school to improve family access. A district-wide technology audit was completed, ensuring accurate inventory, device allocations, and strategic planning for schools to begin device deployment to our students. Together, these efforts help position CMS for a successful launch of the new year. At this time, I'd like to introduce our Chief Strategy and Innovation Officer, Beth Thompson.
Good morning. This school year, we continue our work toward our district goals and guardrails, and we have a roadmap for success. Tune in to our Board of Education meetings for end-of-year goal reports Tuesday, August the 26th, and continue through November. Also, tune in on Wednesday, September 3rd for more information about our 2024-25 state accountability performance results. That's when the state will release those results statewide along with Charlotte Mecklenburg Schools' 24-25 data. I look forward to seeing you there. If you're joining the Charlotte Mecklenburg Schools family this year, it's important to start by registering for school. We encourage you as soon as possible to your child will have transportation and a schedule on the very first day of school. We're happy to share that new this year, parents or guardians can complete that school registration process completely online from any location with internet access, including from their very own home. If parents choose to register online, you provide all necessary information for your child, required documents by form. If it would be helpful to have someone help you with required paperwork, please feel free to have to complete that registration at the school by using one of the kiosks that Dr. Salmon-Hosey just spoke of that's been prepared for you, and or to schedule a virtual appointment online. You may also register by scheduling an in-person appointment with the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools Student Placement Department. Please note, our volume of registrants is very high right now, so we do encourage folks to use that online option. But please don't wait. We want to be able to warmly welcome every child to open house that starts tonight and on the first day of school with a prepared schedule, classroom, and an outstanding teacher. Registration helps make that happen. Actually, it's required to make that happen, so please don't delay. This year, as Dr. Hill said, we have a new student information system. It's called Infinite Campus. This change was made by the state of North Carolina, and we, along with all the school districts across North Carolina, have been preparing for this transition for a very long time. Similar to Power School, which our families and students are very familiar with, this year, the use of Infinite Campus will help parents and students, but parents especially, find announcements, assignments, attendance information, grades, their child's schedule, and so much more. Visit the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools website, Back to School page, click on Infinite Campus for more information. Again, don't delay. Parents, we want to be sure that you have your Parent Portal app downloaded prior to open house so you can log into Infinite Campus and review your child's teachers and schedule for this year. We want to make sure you have that information for your child. Once parents have downloaded the Infinite Campus Parent Portal app, they'll need to create their very own account. That's called the Infinite Campus Parent Portal in order to access your child's information. This portal allows parents to sign on and access that information safely and securely. It is now available to create. In fact, as of this morning, we have 40,382 students who have at least one parent or guardian who has already created their Parent Portal account, and that's before we've even started our series of open houses this week. We ask parents to follow the instructions that's linked on our Back to School web page to get started with the creation of that account. And if anybody needs assistance, please don't hesitate to reach out for help at either open house over the next 3 evenings or your student's school. Also, I, along with all Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools parent, completed my child's required Back to School forms at the start of this school year already. These include forms like photo release forms, child nutrition forms, parent contact forms, medical forms, and so many more. Typically when I do this, I think there has to be a better way. Well, now there is. This year, for the very first time, those forms are all digital, and you access them through the Infinite Campus Parent Portal. Yep, you heard it correctly. Parents now have the option to complete the forms now. They don't have to wait for the first day of school. And word on the street is it only takes about 5 or 10 minutes compared to doing them by hand previously. These forms, in all seriousness, provide really critical information for each child's teachers and administrators. Things like medical information, preferences regarding photo and media releases, etc. It's critical that parents download that Parent Portal app just as soon as possible and log on for that Infinite Campus Parent Portal so that those forms can be completed. Don't delay. Download and complete those forms today. I'll now turn it back over to Dr. Hill for closing comments.
Thank you, Chief Thompson, and I would like to thank all of our employees, all of our leaders, many of whom are in the room, for all of their incredible work that help us get ready to do the important work that we do every single day for our students. Just want you all to know how much I appreciate you, all of the work that has gone into making this year a success. When I opened, I talked a lot about leadership in our Board of Education, and our board chair is here. If she would please stand, Dr. Stephanie Sneed, our board chair. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for the leadership that you provide for our school district. One of my favorite sayings is, things don't just happen, people make them happen. So again, thank you to all of the people that make the great things happen every day. So there you have it. You've heard it, a great deal of work has gone into preparing for this upcoming school year, and we cannot wait to get started next week with our traditional students. As you've already heard, our early and middle college students have already started. As a reminder, parents can visit our Back to School website for our top 10 things to know and other important information that's needed for the start of the school year. We know that we've given you a lot of information this morning, so at this time we will entertain questions, and I will turn it over to Susan Vernon Devlin, who is our Executive Director of Media Relations. Amanda.
Hi, so I know that you mentioned that there are vacancies as far as bus drivers. Are there vacancies elsewhere in the district as well, like with teachers or anything like that?
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. We are approaching the bottom of the hour. It's 2:20. That is the CMS Back to School press conference from this morning. We've been dipping in and out of that. We had it actually live this morning during our 9 to 11 hours. So we're going to step aside from that. And we want to go to politics. All right. So we've been talking a lot about city council, from the mayoral race, to city council, of course. So today, voters had a chance to hear from city council, folks who are running for city council seat in District 4. District 4 is, correct me if I'm wrong, Julie, this is what, northeast of the city, District 4? Okay, so we have two candidates. So it's not like a plethora of candidates I have to list off right now. I think I can remember the names. Renee Johnson and Will Russell. They're running. And they spoke during this forum. Give me your takeaway.
It was a really engaged forum. I've been to quite a few of these at this point, and this one was really, really interesting because people came with, I mean, they always come with good questions, but they came with very specific questions this time, which I thought was really interesting, especially because this is not the first matchup between Johnson and Russell before. He ran last time against her. Of course, she won. She's the incumbent and has been in that seat since 2019. So he's got some ground to make up because she's, you know, quite a familiar face for these people. But they did hammer her kind of hard in terms of, why did you vote for Krista Bakari to fill in the District 6 seat, given Tark Bakari's history? People had questions about the settlement. People had questions about transparency in general. Both of them answered that question. And so I think the thing that stuck out to me most was that they were thrown some pretty hard curveballs.
Do you think with those questions, do you think that you've been to different forums, is that sort of the sentiment with other sort of forums? People questioning what's happening actually inside council chambers?
It depends, which I think is really interesting, and that's why this one I was so interested in, because, for example, I remember every media organization was at Tijuana Brown's first town hall after news of her federal indictment that she's accused of came out, and none of the people in the Q&A even asked her about it. They were just more interested in what affects me. And for them, that didn't really affect them. They were more interested in development and construction and things like that. And I think the similar case could be made for some of the questions asked today, though they did get more into the weeds with the Krista Bakari vote. But people did have a lot of questions in the same vein about development. Now, what's interesting is Will Russell has a background in construction. He is a developer. So they also questioned him pretty hard. And are you just going to be on city council so that you can get approval for things that you want to do? He kind of accuses her of being anti-development. She says, no, I just want to make sure this is done properly. So it was a lot of not just back and forth with the crowd, but in between the two candidates, it got pretty heated. which is interesting. It is heating up with these races. Julie, again, I have so many more questions to ask you, but I'm going to save the questions because you're here pretty often. Julie, I guess my last question before I wrap you up, when can folks catch the story tonight? It's going to be on at 6, and we'll get kind of more into the history of their last race together. Of course, Mayor Vi-Lyles endorsed Will Russell last time, and that has kind of fueled some of the tension within council between Johnson and Vi-Lyles. So, yeah, that'll be on at 6. Yeah, I wanted to leave some more meat on the bone. I didn't want to. I don't want to. Yes, that's so we call it tease in the news business. Julie, thank you for your time. Thank you for stopping by the studio. Yeah, it's going to get real interesting, and we're more than a year out from the 2026 election. So again, still a lot of developments on that front. All right, so we want to go to something live, something I'm watching right now. You probably can see by the reaction on my face that this is pretty interesting. What's happening here? Is this the
Okay. Oh, this is Wilmington. Okay, so let me take you back to what we have so far. All right. And give me 1 second, guys. Again, this is breaking news out of Wilmington. 3 firefighters hurt while battling a gas explosion there. You see the aftermath of that. You see the fire trucks. You see the debris, the cones. Yeah, you see it all right there on that street. So emergency crews are responding to an explosion near New Center Drive in Wilmington. Authorities say that a car hit the Eastern Carolina Veterinary Referral Building at 5051 New Center Drive. It looks like that shot went away. But it ruptured a gas line around 11:30 a.m. Wilmington police, it looks like we got the shots back, so I'll take you back to it. So Wilmington police said a driver was turning into Bob King when they went off the road and hit the gas line to the building. Officers tell us the driver left the scene but was quickly located and taken into custody. Authorities believe that the driver was impaired. Now, I'm reading this from WECT, the NBC affiliate there in Wilmington, North Carolina. Wilmington police also stated 3 firefighters were injured while battling this fire. One of those firefighters has severe burns on his hands. Now, according to the business's website, it was expected to open the new location next month. And again, that shot keeps going in and out there. So again, you see the police department, you saw a fire department on the scene in Wilmington. We will continue to keep our eye there on that developing situation out of Wilmington. All right, so I see something else happening live. Do we want to go to that, or do we want to go back to this explosion, Carlene? Okay, so this looks like Congressman Greg Sazer holding a press conference. Let me get you some more information on this, guys. Again, you see this press conference happening.
According to the NBC dropdown, it looks like it's regarding to the flood response legislation.
And he's a Texas Dem. He's a representative there. He's a Texas Democrat. Talking about flood response legislation. Again, flooding hit Central Texas hard July 4th weekend. But let's take a listen in to what he has to say.
That formed in Driftwood, Texas, just to the west of us in the hill country. Had our warning systems been linked up with Driftwoods, the communities here would have had 3 additional hours to prepare. They could have had warnings. We could have prevented lives lost. This is the kind of technological advancement that we need to bring ourselves into the 21st century, because we are dealing with a different frequency and intensity of floods. We talk a lot about trauma-informed care, and we have to be conscious of that, because when I think many of the survivors of the Halloween floods saw what happened in these most recent July floods, it was very re-traumatizing. Hearts went out and learnings were shared, and we saw how unprepared many of those communities are. I think even more important than trauma-informed care is our preparedness to prevent trauma. And we see that the degree to which communities are traumatized is directly linked with their agency in the moment of trauma, what they're able to do, what they're able to take control of, how they're able to mitigate harm and risk. These common sense protections of investments, reinvestments in FEMA and NOAA give us the tools, information, and resources to prepare communities and allow people to take care of themselves and each other, reducing our overall loss and reducing the cost to our country. This is common sense. It is not a partisan issue, and we know that community is the first response in any disaster, but community needs our institutions to uphold those basic tools, information, and resources so they can respond the best way. Thank you.
Thank you, Carmen. Good afternoon. My name is Brian Zobchik, and I am the Advocacy Director at Save Barton Creek Association. We were founded in 1979, making us one of the oldest citizens environmental groups, not only in Austin, but in the state. We now work to protect streams, aquifers, and watersheds throughout the city and throughout Central Texas. We have been working with our coalition partners on policy recommendations for the Texas legislature to address the flooding that happened in July. Unfortunately, the legislature seems to be a little preoccupied with other problems. That's why we are really grateful that Congressman Casar has shown leadership on this issue with these two bills. These two bills are an essential part of our response to the flooding that happened. They will make us better prepared for when, not if, but when, the next unprecedented floods happen in Central Texas. These floods happen not just in rural areas of Central Texas, but in urban areas too, as we've heard. And we really want to stress the importance of measures that address both the rural and the urban aspects of flooding. One of the things that makes flooding worse is an increase in impervious cover. This means basically anything that prevents water from soaking into the ground. That includes buildings, streets, and parking lots. Congressman Casar has worked with SBCA and with others on at least one relief for impervious cover when he was on City Council, and that was a measure that requires new developments to use what's called green infrastructure. Green infrastructure features include rain gardens, bioswales, green roofs, permeable pavement. They all have the advantage of allowing water to soak into the ground, and if it does flow off, to flow off more slowly. It is a myth that hill country soils, that Central Texas soils, are too rocky to absorb water. If you give it a chance, if you don't put impervious cover over the soil, a lot of that water can actually soak into the ground where it falls. If you put down more impervious cover, that water will run off, and it will then increase the flood volume in streams. That's one of the things that made the Dove Springs floods so devastating, was a sharp increase in the amount of impervious cover, i.e. new subdivisions, being built in the upper Onion Creek watershed. There are many ways that we can address the problems with flooding after they happen, but there are also too many things that we can do before they happen. Again, we want to thank Congressman Casar for his leadership on this issue. Not only will it make us better prepared, but more importantly, it will save lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian, and thanks to Save Barton Creek and Gava. And now we have Ricardo Zavala from Dove Springs Brown.
Thank you, Congressman, for the invitation today and for pushing these bills forward. As one of many community leaders here in the Dove Springs area, our organization, our community organization, Dove Springs Proud, was founded the same month as the 2013 Halloween flood happened. And my faith leads us to say that we as community leaders are the subject matter experts. But we also need subject matter experts in the administration as well, like FEMA, to be able to support us, because we were there first. We were the community responded first, and then FEMA supported us in that year in 2013, and same way in 2015. So I'm here to support the congressman, to bring back the staff that are the subject matter experts that we need, the scientists that we need, to work partner with the community leaders who are the subject matter experts of the different communities that get flooded. And together we can do great things to save citizens. Thank you, Congressman.
Thank you so much. Y para los que están aquí en español, hoy hay nuestra nueva propuesta de ley para regresarle el dinero y el equipo técnico a las agencias como FEMA que ayudan en los desastres en este país. Porque el presidente y gente como Elon Musk deshicieron a nuestras agencias de científicos y de expertos que nos ayudan en prevenir desastres y también en ayudar a las comunidades después de los desastres. Y después de este desastre horrible y las inundaciones del 4 de julio, sabemos que la respuesta fue peor porque se deshicieron de los fondos y del equipo técnico necesario para ayudar a nuestra comunidad. Y sabemos que va a haber más desastres y más inundaciones. Mi propuesta de ley solamente pide que regresemos al nivel de fondos y de personal para prevenir los desastres que sabemos que van a regresar aquí a Texas. Y que si los republicanos quieren verdaderamente ayudar a nuestro estado, lo mínimo que puedan hacer es regresarnos el mínimo de fondos y de personal en estas agencias que ayudan a la comunidad. In closing, right before we take some questions, I want to acknowledge that we are in this special legislative session. And if the Republicans really cared about relief and rebuilding after the July 4th floods, then they should support our bill to restore funding and staffing to FEMA and NOAA instead of focusing so much on redistricting and their own politics. Any questions for me or any of our speakers?
Congressman, had this funding that you're trying to restore been in place when the July 4th floods that weekend, what difference do you think that would have made here in Central Texas?
There was a severe staffing shortage at the National Weather Service and at other disaster response agencies. In Central Texas, in our region, for example, head scientist in charge of the region was missing. And I understand that they rearranged staff through those vacancies, but it would have sure been better for the agency to have been fully staffed and not have been cut down to bits before that storm. And so my office, alongside Ranking Member Garcia's office, has asked for an independent investigation into how staff is hurt our response. And the independent Inspector General has said that there's merit to that kind of investigation and is conducting that exact kind of investigation. So we need to know exactly what went well and be thankful for the folks that did the hard work and responded, but we should also know what went wrong. And I think it's been very clear in the weeks of investigations after that flood response that there were failures at every level of government, from the local to the state to the federal level. And the only way to respect the dead and protect the living is to fully investigate what went wrong. And I have yet to find members of Congress who say that it is good that we have cut staffing at FEMA. But Donald Trump keeps saying, and Kristi Noem keeps saying, that they want to get rid of FEMA as we know it. I have yet to find members of Congress that say they want to get rid of FEMA. So if they want to fix this problem and actually do deeds and not just words, they just have to sign on to this bill. This bill does not spend a bunch of extra money. It simply says let's restore the FEMA staffing and the NOAA staffing and funding levels back to where they were at the beginning of this year.
And to follow up on that, do you plan to have conversations with your Republican colleagues to try to help?
Yes, we have invited every member of the House to sign on as co-sponsors. You know, we just filed the bill today, but I certainly am going to be asking every member of the Texas delegation that expressed their words of solidarity with the flood victims to actually do something about it and sign on to this bill, because this is a very bipartisan idea. I've yet to find an everyday Texan, Democratic, Independent, or Republican, who thinks that FEMA staffing should be cut in response to these disasters.
¿Qué piensas de la respuesta que viste después de que Donald Trump viniera a ver todo lo que había ocurrido? ¿Piensas que hubiera sido diferente? ¿Qué es lo que esperaban y cuál fue la impresión que les dio?
Mira, solamente llegar y tomarse fotos no es suficiente. Necesitamos fondos y ayuda.
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. It looks like that shot froze there. That was Texas Democrat Congressman Caesar, Representative Caesar, talking about flood legislation, flood response legislation. This comes in response to, as you know, we brought you here on Live Impact News, and that you've probably seen around, the devastating floods July 4th weekend in Central Texas. So speaking of weather, we want to stick with weather this time. We want to talk about it here at home. Let's send it to meteorologist Majestic Storm for a look at our full forecast.
Well, good Tuesday afternoon to you. I'm WCNC meteorologist Majestic Storm, and all eyes continue to watch what is Hurricane Erin. I'm going to give you the details of what we know about it now and watch the track of it, walk you through it all, and then we'll switch over to our local forecast. This is the 11 a.m. advisory. Hurricane Erin's about 600 to 700 miles away from North Carolina. Right now, it stands as a Category 2 hurricane. Now, it's not as strong as it was on Saturday, thankfully, when it reached reached its max of a Cat 5 hurricane, but it's still holding 105 mile per hour max sustained winds, 125 mile per hour wind gusts. Now it's going to continue to move a bit more to the north and to the west, but over the next 36 hours, look at how close it gets to the Carolinas, and this is concerning. Now we're still confident that it's not going to make landfall, that the center of Erin is not going to continue to shift more northward and more westward towards the Carolinas, but we're concerned that those outer bands will bring some big impacts to the coastal communities. Let me walk you through the track of this. Keep in mind this cone right here is a good indication where we could see the center of Erin. It does not talk about those outer bands and the impacts that we're likely going to get. Now I think we're going to get the greatest impacts across North Carolina Wednesday night and into really all day on Thursday before really Erin starts to curve more north and east and head back out to the Atlantic. A few things we're watching. What are the impacts that we need to be prepared for? Remember, this is mainly our coastal communities. We will not get great impacts as we're looking at the Charlotte metro area, thankfully, but we're looking at very, very strong winds. I want to fast forward you into our time. Again, this is going to mainly ramp up for the Carolinas Wednesday night and into Thursday. This is early Thursday morning where some of those winds could gust up. Actually, they could be max sustained winds 50 to 60 miles an hour, especially out towards the Outer Banks. That's going to be the main focus of concentration as to where we could see the greatest impacts, and this will last really for hours up and down the coastline of North Carolina. Again, the Outer Banks really going to get hit the worst with those impacts. Coastal flooding is going to be a big concern as well, as our wave heights are incredibly high. Now within the center of Erin, it's not out of the question that we won't see some of those waves reach over 30 feet high, but you can see across the coastline of North Carolina about 10 to 20 feet, so very damaging and dangerous wave heights. Storm surges anywhere from 1 to 3 feet for North Carolina, but specifically for the Outer Banks about 3 to 6. So this is very important for people to take seriously. It's very dangerous and it could be deadly if you're not taking it seriously. Again, this is what we're watching for when it comes to the impacts of Hurricane Erin. High surf, beach erosion, and tidal flooding along the entire coast. The Outer Banks likely going to see the worst of it. A lot of flooding ahead. 20 to 30 mile per hour winds along the coast with 40 to 60 across the Outer Banks. Remember, this is our 5th named storm of the season, our first hurricane, and Erin really met its peak on Saturday as a Category 5 hurricane. Meanwhile, it's been a cloudy start for us. We'll see some sunshine later today, sunshine tomorrow, and then as we're looking towards the weekend, we will see a little bit more rain and storm chances. 80s by the afternoon. That's really right around where we should be for this time of the year. Rain chances over the next 10 days look like this. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, about a 30% chance, so keep that in mind if you're making those weekend plans. Here's that 7-day forecast. Get outside and enjoy that sunshine today. It's going to be warm and muggy though, and then we will increase our clouds and our rain chances over the weekend. Stay close to the WCNC weather team. We'll keep you up to date with the very latest.
I just love hearing the music there. I just want to play it out, show you the views from outside. Still gloomy outside. Okay, so that's a check of your forecast. All right, so we talked about it. We've been talking about it all show. I feel like it's been a theme of the show today. Back to school. CMS, one of the largest school districts here in the state, they held their back to school press conference today, and they talked about everything from AI, its involvement, to new tech when it comes to how they can better communicate with families about what's going on throughout the district and at schools individually. And they also talked about ICE, concerns around ICE at CMS. So much they got to during this press conference, and we've been bringing it to you bit by bit. We want to continue that conversation and continue that press conference. So let's send it back out to that press conference in case you missed it from this morning.
Going to receive recommendations and process recommendations for new hires, but we currently have 228 classroom vacancies.
Brett. Hi, I'm not sure if this is for Tim or Dr. Hill. You talked about the new safety app, the I Love You Guys thing. How did you guys come to the decision to go to that particular safety situation as opposed to what you maybe previously had?
Great question. So first off, the Center for Safer Schools has been endorsing the I Love You Guys as a protocol for school districts to jump on as a standard response protocol for quite some time. The foundation, once it came out, its objective was to be able to provide clearer communication for students in the event of an emergency. And so we decided that based off of our need to be able to help students better understand and parents to better understand what was happening when a situation does occur at a school, that this would be a much better standard response protocol. It has clear instructions for each of the different aspects, excuse me, and so they are hold, secure, lockdown, evacuate, and shelter. And each one of those commands comes with clear instructions and also has visuals for students and staff to understand. So when you have a person who walks into the school who may not know anything about what to do in an emergency situation, there are visuals throughout the school that will help them and guide them to be able to do that. It increases our response time when substitutes are in the school buildings and we have other visitors who are there. So it was natural for us to make this progression as an additional layer to our safety protocol. We feel like it will really help students be more at ease in schools because there will be clear instructions when something happens. And if we do have to institute a lockdown, we will know that that is a serious event as opposed to some of the times when a lockdown is called and it's like a secure lockdown, but it's an external event that's happening around the school and it won't alert parents. This will allow us to be able to better communicate exactly the events that are happening.
And I'll add just a little bit to that, Brett, in terms of getting, my mic on? Yes, in terms of getting to making the selection, we listened. So we have had a superintendent's, we have advisories for lots of different groups, but one of my favorites is students. And so the students talked to me about all types of different topics, and this is one of the topics that they talked about. And so Mr. Ivy and the team came and presented the idea to the students, and they really enjoyed, they thought it would be a great idea. Then we then took it to our superintendent's parent advisory. They provided the same level of feedback. So that's how we got to the actual decision.
Evan? Yes, thank you. I have some other questions about the systems this year and about the preparations, but I just want to follow up on that question there because I know there's some changes to both the communication protocol as well as to what you do when there are threats on campus. We are hearing that last night there was a gunshot fired at one school campus at CMS, and I want to ask if that is true. Did that happen? And if so, is there any communication that you need to make to parents about that?
Immediately when we became aware of an incident on campus, law enforcement was contacted, including CMPD and CMSPD. And so this is an active investigation. We communicated immediately not only with the staff of that particular school and the parents of that particular school, but a neighboring school as well, just out of an abundance of caution. The police did make an arrest last night in that investigation, but beyond that, I can't speak to it because it is an active investigation.
So I just want to clarify on the communication protocol part. So if there was a gunshot fired on campus and you all know that, that is not information that you would share with parents?
We communicated last night with parents twice. The first time that we communicated, we let them know that there was an incident on campus. Everything was still being investigated, and we let them know that as soon as we had more information available, we would communicate with them. Then last night around 7:30-ish, 8 o'clock, close to 7:30, we received information, and as soon as we received information, we communicated that out again, not only to the staff, because students weren't on campus yesterday. However, there were scheduled events for students, practices, things like that. We did communicate to the staff of that particular school, as well as the families. And out of an abundance of caution, we also communicated to a neighboring school. So the response to your question is, not only did we communicated immediately that something happened, and then when we buttoned it up, when there was an arrest made, we reached back out and said, an arrest has been made. However, everything is still under investigation. And that's all that I'll speak to on that topic.
Thanks. Yeah, I guess sort of elaborating on the I Love You Guys protocol, I was wondering if you could clarify sort of what are some of the main differences between that and sort of the previous protocols? Did it used to sort of vary school to school? Like how does it look different than the previous protocol?
So our previous protocol, we would go into variations of lockdown. So you would have a secure lockdown or a lockdown. And those two had several different meanings. The term lockdown was used, and because of feedback from students and parents, what they were seeing was that was creating some anxiety in students because you've got the term lockdown being used overly, so people weren't really understanding, what do I really do in this situation? It's a secure lockdown. What's my protocol? Or is it a real lockdown? What's my protocol? So what happens with I Love You Guys is it gives us clear instructions. For each type of incident, there are clear verbal and visual instructions for what students are supposed to do in those situations, and they're audibly spoken over the intercom so that everybody has clear understanding of the actions that they need to take. It also provides us with the ability to hold students in the classroom if we need to for just any type of incident. Let's say that a student were to get sick in the hallway and we didn't want to move students from one classroom to the other. We can easily put the school in hold and not create an alarm in other students that something is happening so that they'll feel more comfortable with their environment. We really want our students and our families to know that when we have an actual lockdown, that is a serious event that will involve law enforcement to be there to support. And so we don't want to have confusion about lockdown by having levels of lockdowns. So again, the commands are hold, secure, lockdown, evacuate, and shelter. And all that information is found on our website as well as the I Love You Guys Foundation website, which also has the training videos that staff will use, and they're available for you to watch and look as well.
This is the first year that the cell phone policy has been implemented. This is the first year that the cell phone policy has been implemented. How will that be enforced in the classroom?
Thank you for that question. We have worked with our schools to help them create procedures that they will share with families beginning tonight at Open House. They've already started communicating through the various ways that they are inviting families into their schools. They will also talk with students over the coming weeks and continue to remind them of the expectations that is off and put away during instructional times during the school day.
James?
Yeah, just to follow up on that, if I remember correctly, I think the policy last year was that you weren't supposed to have phones during class, but like each school kind of had its own flexibility. So can you talk maybe more specifically what looks different in this year's version of the policy compared to last year's?
Thank you. That's a great question. So what you'll see this year is there'll be a more uniformed approach. The expectation from the district that we follow the off and put away across the district. While it may look different depending on the school level and the school, the expectation is that they're off and put away. Some schools may have a designated location and some will have that it's put away in their book bag. So that may look different, but across all of our schools in the district, cell phones and devices will be put away during instructional time.
You had a follow-up? When it comes to the teacher vacancies, what is the biggest need right now?
And again, this number is fluid. Currently, we have 45 K-6 vacancies and 38 EC vacancies. So those would be two of our largest categories.
Yeah, and Casey, I'll just follow up with that. So believe it or not, elementary and exceptional children vacancies are high needs. A couple of years ago, that wasn't necessarily the case, but those are the two high need areas. And we have a team in place that works really closely to make sure that those vacancies are vetted and that we're able to get great candidates to those schools right away. But again, those are our two high needs areas.
I have a couple questions about Infinite Campus. First question, though, is that we were hearing from some parents. Some parents at Mallard Creek High School that they reported that the school was having some issues with the Infinite Campus. Were you all made aware of that? And are there any issues happening like that elsewhere?
The challenge. Thank you. The challenges that we're experiencing related to Infinite Campus are largely not about the platform itself not working. It is more focused around making sure that everybody knows how to use it because it's a new platform. And basically, we have been in the process over the last year and continue to support folks in being able to know how to use it because the processes are different than what they had previously done in Power School. And to put numbers to that, when we talk about training and acclimating people to a new platform, we're talking about 141,000 plus students. We're talking about 19,000 employees that interface with that platform in some way, shape, or form, depending on their job. And then we're talking about all of the parents, guardians, and caretakers of those 141,000 students who are all learning how to use a new thing all at the same time. And all of them have different things that they need to do with it. So currently we're in the process of making sure that we have opportunities for people to get help. So if they're trying to use a new platform and they're struggling a little bit in that learning process, and they've used those directions and they're still struggling just a little bit, they can either reach out to the school to be able to support them, or we also have Let's Talk, which is on our website, and that allows them to go to the school webpage to click on Contact Us. And when they click on Contact Us, a form will automatically populate on the screen, and they can submit any concerns or questions that they might have related to Infinite Campus. So it's not that the platform is not working. Largely, it's that we're still acclimating people to being able to use it. That's taking a little more time in some cases. So something that might have taken them 3 minutes to do last year might be taking 5 minutes this year. But we're working through, and we have strong support systems to be able to answer those questions. And I also just want to say a huge shout out to our staff members, particularly it's a role in our schools that's called data managers. And they manage the receipt of those student registrations, and then they support and make sure that all of the paperwork that parents have submitted online now is accurate. They determine, yes, the student can be enrolled, or they send information back to parents to say, hey, we have everything but your lease. We really need that in here. Or it has to be signed. It can't just be a copy of a lease. And then they work with parents along with our support staff to make sure all of that paperwork is submitted and is now uploaded into this system. So a huge thank you to those folks. I'll also give a shout out to some of our central office staff who have been working till 9 o'clock every night for the last 3 weeks or so to support the use of this new system and make sure folks have the support that they need, as well as central office staff who've been working around the clock to make sure that happens.
Thank you, Beth. And I just want to add a little bit of context. Hello? I don't think it's me. I think it's one of the handhelds. I did want to just add a little bit of context for you, so I'm going to age myself a little bit. This is my 28th year in education, and those folks that are in the room know that every so often the state changes their student information system. It's not a bad thing, it's just change is good. So those oldies but goodies in the room, remember when we were in NCYs? Mm-hmm. And we went from NCYs to, was it Power School? Yes. Mm-hmm. And then now it's Power School to Infinite Campus. So it's not Charlotte Mecklenburg's thing, it's a statewide student information system thing. The other thing that I just want to clear up, I know I've seen some articles that said that the switch to Infinite Campus was because of the national data breach that Power School had. That is not true at all. This contract was signed, sealed, and delivered way before that incident ever occurred. The state goes through a procurement process, just like districts do, to select their new vendor for the student information system. They did that. Last year was actually year 1 of implementation. They asked some early adopters. Charlotte Mecklenburg Schools said, no way, Jose, we're not going first. We'll let you guys work out all the bugs, and then we'll learn from you. So Beth won't say it, but her and her team worked very closely with all of those implementing districts to find out what are all the issues that you all are having, because we don't want to have those same issues. So they've been able to work through a lot of the bugs. And I will also say the primary thing that was the linchpin to make sure that we had a smooth rollout was the data. So this team had to go back to 2013 to clean up all of the data, addresses, telephone numbers, names, your real name, not like your pseudo name or your nickname or whatever. All of those things to clean up all of that data. And NCDPI said in writing, Charlotte Mecklenburg Schools had the cleanest data when they switched everything over in July. So what I would describe as the issues that people are having, while they're very frustrating, yes, to the end user, I would say that those issues are just implementation issues. Give it a little bit of time, hold your hand, and it will be okay. In every single district, every single day. But yes, there are, thank you, issues. We have encountered some issues with Infinite Campus, and as well as online enrollment, which is.
Hey, good afternoon, folks. Vanessa Rufus here in the Live Impact News studio, taking over for Nick Sturdivant. We'll be together for the next hour or so before we turn you over to our 4 o'clock newscast. We wanted to talk about a really important topic really all year long, but we've been very excited to be able to highlight this throughout the month. But we've got Clear the Shelters, and this is a great time for us to talk about adoption, fostering, volunteering, advocacy work, donations, all that folks can do to support their local shelters and rescues. And this is really cool, this topic that we have for you right now, because I don't know if we've given this much of a spotlight in all of our reporting that we've done on the volunteer and foster program over at Charlotte Mecklenburg Animal Care and Control. So we've got Deanna O'Connor and Deanna Hubler joining us from Zoomy Toomey Run Club. And so just a quick background on Zoomy Toomey Run Club. This name comes from the name of the satellite location for Charlotte Mecklenburg Animal Care and Control, which is on Toomey Avenue. But this is a volunteer group specifically for helping these dogs and also getting, I guess, essentially your steps in, right?
Yes.
So tell us about Zoomy Toomey Run Club. What do y'all do, and how did this get started?
So this was started by a foster, Ricky Highsmith. This is his baby. He was the founder, and initially he was the solo member. So last summer he started coming over to Toomey and taking dogs one at a time and running at Southside Park across the street. And volunteers, he started talking to volunteers, talking to staff, talking to community members, and he really built this program. So it is a run club / rescue / way for community members to come out and meet dogs, exercise dogs, and then also bring attention to the Toomey location every Sunday morning.
Yeah. By the way, we've got some clips and some videos that y'all sent us. You can see that off to your left-hand side, ladies, but folks, of course, you're seeing it right on your screen. But these are some images of some of your events. Important to mention, too, I mean, there's so many benefits of this club, but one of the primary purposes is to kind of curb kennel stress, which is the whole purpose really of the volunteer program, getting these dogs out of the kennels, because they can get a bit wound up, if they're not getting out on a regular basis. And this seems like a great energy burner, right?
Absolutely. So one of my favorite things to do after all the dogs have been out and ran, walked, however you choose to interact with them, the kennels are so much quieter. You walk through, the energy is just much more calm. They've usually got their treats that are in the kennels with them. They're just happier, and I like to think that they present better for the potential foster and adopters that are coming in.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing that we always try to talk about when we do talk about adoption and fostering and volunteering, why it's so important to keep in mind when you go to maybe meet some of these dogs in person, maybe not judge them but by what you see when you're looking through a closed kennel door, because sometimes those dogs might have been there for, you know, several hours. They're pent up. They don't always present their very best, and I kind of always think, you know, how might a person feel, you know, if you're stuck in a, you know, a enclosed space for a long time. And so, I mean, I so salute y'all for making this a regular thing, and it seems like a great way to not only help the shelter, but also maybe probably get to meet some really great people too.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's how we met. I mean, again, it's volunteers, it's fosters and community members. Anybody can come in at 10 o'clock on Tuesday or on Sunday mornings to Toomey, and we've made great relationships with each other. And so many of these community members and fosters have taken dogs directly from Run Club. They've fallen in love. They take a dog with them, talk to a family member, they take a dog with them, talk to friends. So it's bringing more attention to Toomey, providing exercise, and then also building friendships with the volunteers, fosters, and community members.
Yeah, probably worth noting too, maybe some of the background on Toomey, because it is probably a lesser known location. Folks are probably more familiar with the longstanding Byram Drive main shelter, but Toomey was added as kind of a satellite location because the shelter, as we've reported on time and time again here in Charlotte, has been at max capacity pretty much since after the pandemic. It sounds like the kennels have been pretty full, and this is kind of an extra kind of overflow space that is giving the shelter a little extra, you know, room and kennel capacity. But if folks don't know about it, maybe they're not looking over there for some really great dogs, because y'all have some great notes on some of the dogs that we're seeing over there.
So the dogs at Toomey are, I mean, they're great dogs. Obviously, there's approximately 30 kennels that are usually full at Toomey. The other thing about the Toomey dogs is they are moved over there because they can be in a kennel environment in which they share a fence with another dog. So they have the temperament that they can, you know, not fence fight and get along with other dogs in that environment. So the Toomey location is not really spotlighted all that much because it is almost, I guess you would say, satellite/overflow location. But again, incredible dogs and about 30 kennels.
Yeah, I mean, it was the old Humane Society building, so there's a lot of that infrastructure that has remained. It sounds like they did fix it up just a bit. I've seen the inside of Toomey before, and you can kind of tell, you know, it's an older building, but they've got it, you know, set up so that they can house dogs appropriately. But to your point, yeah, not every dog can go over to Toomey. It almost kind of speaks well of their behavioral and inter-dog relationship, you know, skills that they're over there at Toomey. So we talked about the fact that there's some great notes for some of these dogs. Y'all have picked out 4 dogs to highlight, so we can start off. It looks like we've got Bongo queued up first here, so let's go ahead and we've got Bongo's flyer first, and so we'll be able to read a little bit about Bongo, 5 years old, looks like he's around 55 pounds. He's a male and just seems like a really sweet guy. What can you tell us about Bongo?
So Bongo is, he's an incredible boy. He's actually one that we use at Run Club for parallel walks. So we will try to do parallel walks with dogs just to see how they would do with another dog in close proximity. And he is one of our go-to guys. He has been there since May. It's unfortunate because he is such a sweetheart, but you know, I mean, he's 5 years old now, and sometimes those quiet, calmer dogs get overlooked. But he is a wonderful guy, a volunteer favorite, and definitely a Run Club favorite.
Yeah, we've got some clips that y'all have shared of Bongo. So we do see the parallel walking here, him with another dog. Looks like this is just outside of the Toomey location. Looks like a real sweetie. Oh, I just love to see that. And you know, the parallel walks too, I totally understand. Really great to kind of get a sense of temperament. Look at this face.
Right?
Oh.
And he loves to snuggle. He'll stop in the middle of a walk just to snuggle.
I love that. Oh my gosh. Okay, so next up we have Ollie. So we'll start off once again with Ollie's flyer so folks can get an idea of some of the notes. 3 years old, neutered male, kind of around that 50-pound mark as well. He's got a beautiful tan baby seal look, I can see.
So handsome.
Yeah, tell us about Ollie.
So Ollie is, well, the good news is an hour ago I got a text saying that Ollie went to be adopted.
Oh,
so we have good
okay,
news.
breaking
But
news. Okay.
This is breaking news. But on the flip side, there is another a dog similar to Ollie named Jonathan that is there, similar, maybe a little more energy, but a very sweet guy, great in the car. Are you familiar with Jonathan?
Yes, one of my friends ran him at Run Club, and she said that he could have kept on going, but it was great on leash, very treat motivated, very sweet.
Okay, so we'll reiterate once again. Unfortunately, the ship has sailed for Ollie, who is just an absolute dreamboat. But Jonathan, seemingly some similar notes and maybe a similar, does he have a similar look too as Ollie?
He does.
Okay.
He's the tan and white. He's a little bit smaller. But again, he's had great notes on vacations, good notes with kids, and positive with other dogs.
Yeah.
So it's very similar to Ollie. If you were interested in Ollie, please consider Jonathan. He's also at Toomey.
Jonathan over at Toomey for Charmec Animal Care and Control. I think also I should mention this too, like the fact that you're able to get great notes. I mean, this is something that comes from an event or, you know, a type of a volunteer effort like Zumi Toomey Run Club. You're able to get these great notes, and this actually does make a big difference in these dogs going to foster or adopt, because you can't always get notes like this if they're cooped up in a shelter and not getting interactions with other humans, kids, dogs, anything like it. Yeah.
And also to note, I mean, the runners will come back and give us notes that we share. And we also have a volunteer named Joe who takes amazing photos, and a lot of these photos are his.
Okay.
So the runners and the fosters and the volunteers take photos, but most of the amazing ones are from Joe. So he comes every Sunday and just to take photos of the dogs so we can update profiles and their albums.
Yeah. Next up here we have Polly. I just love Polly's face so much. She's got a great smile.
She does. So I haven't walked Polly, however, I love her love for the pool and the sprinkler.
Oh yeah, we've got
So
some great videos.
She gets out, she gets some great energy out with whoever she's with. And I think everybody's just entertained at the end when she steps into the pool, when she steps into the sprinkler. Exactly. That is so her, and she loves it.
Oh my goodness.
Polly is 100% life of the party. She runs, when you get her out of the kennel, she wants to go right to the front door, not to the back where the yard is. She wants to go to the front door because she thinks the sprinkler and pool are out there.
Ooh.
She is so much fun and so sweet, and she's done really well with the kids at Run Club as well.
Yeah, we can see some great photos of her with some of the younger runners, if you will. And so that's great to hear as well, because, you know, that just means more potential households that could take Polly in, because she seems to get along with any sort of situation, seemingly. Up next, we've got Silas, and we've got Silas's flyer here, 2 years old, male, closer to the 60-pound mark, and really handsome man.
I've had him out twice. So once with my current foster, Jeremiah, where he beautifully parallel walked. We kind of had this cute little interaction, because you're always cautious initially when you have them parallel walking. You're not too close because you're kind of gauging and watching their body language. Then the second time I took him out, I was expecting a walk, and he was like, I know you're a runner, we're going to run. So that's exactly what we did.
Oh my goodness.
And actually, last week we nominated Silas as Runner of the Week because he is another Run Club favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Again, loves kids, likes other dogs, great on outings. I think there's a picture of him there at the bookstore.
Mm-hmm.
He's a reader.
Oh, I did see that picture.
Yeah,
Actually, that might be coming up shortly.
Okay,
if
yeah.
we
So
haven't already
we found
seen
out
it.
he likes books also.
That's
so.
good. Studious, you know.
Yeah, another great dog.
Love it. Well, we'll just remind folks that all of these pups we've profiled here, you can find more information on our website, WCNC.com. We also have an article up inside the WCNC Charlotte mobile app. If you'd like to learn more about the pups and also the adoption process and also the volunteer process. Speaking of which, I did want to chat about how folks can join your club, because I know being a volunteer myself, I remember having to go through, the application process. You have to kind of get vetted and approved through the volunteer program officially to kind of hold leashes and that sort of thing. So what would you recommend folks do to try to kind of maximize their experience for Zumi Toomey?
So they can come over, anybody can come over, if you just have to have a driver's license for identification, but you can come and participate in Zoomy to Me any morning, come anytime between 10 and 12 on Sundays. And if you're not a volunteer but would like to be a volunteer, if you go to the shelter website, the volunteer information is on there as well. The process has been simplified a little bit.
Yeah.
The process is pretty quick. There's a couple trainings, but it's 100% worth it. But we definitely encourage community members to come over. And besides coming on Sunday, any community member at any time can go with their identification and take out a dog for a day, and they would appreciate it. So if you're not available on Sundays to come to Run Club, you can go over to Toomey between 9 and 5. They just like to have the dogs back by 4 so they can give them dinner, but you can take a dog out for the day. You can take them to the park across the street. It's walking distance to the rail trail at South End, so you can just walk them up there. You can also take them like to Whitewater Center or some other adventure if you'd like, and the dogs really love it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, we talk a lot about the importance of volunteering, but I think once you do it, you just really see firsthand the difference that it makes for these animals in need. And I agree in the sense that, it changes lives, and it saves lives too. Can you, I guess, share any sort of success stories, if you will, of like maybe dogs you've met along the way who ended up in great homes, or just speak to in general the experience that you've had as a volunteer and how that's changed maybe your perspective or anything like that?
I've met a couple that because I kind of follow their journey, because you kind of get a little invested with them when you've walked them. I always like to post them into my Instagram, share their story, share their link, and then I'll notice they're in the adoption report where I'm just like, oh, I played a little part in their journey. So I find that to be sweet. I've actually picked up 2 fosters along the way. One who, Heidi was a volunteer favorite, so many of the volunteers really advocated for her after she was so kennel stressed she lost some weight. Now she's absolutely thriving. The girl that she was when she initially came to me, kind of shut down, is definitely not the girl she is today. So she's really taught me the importance of what decompression looks like, and giving a dog the opportunity to, just calm down, to get comfortable, and then, kind of acclimate into their environment.
Yeah. What about you? Deanna number 2 or
Deanna
number
number
1.
2.
I'm not gonna pick favorites at all.
Oh my gosh, of course I've had favorites over the past couple of years. I had one favorite, Kirby, that, was a little bit stressed, had a little bit of an incident, but he was cleared. And then this amazing young girl took him. She lives out of town. He's thriving. He has a sister, a fur sister, and he's doing so well. Again, there's another one, Peppermint, recently. She was there, 6 months. A long time, and we had an amazing foster, took her in. We all worked together to exercise her, and she ended up with an amazing family that had 3 kids, and she's another boxer mix. It goes on and on, how many, and you're just so happy and relieved. But my shout out really goes to the fosters. They're the ones that give them that decompression time and do the slow introductions and give them that safe space that they need to thrive before they're ready for adoption.
Yeah, I mean, having done foster work as well through the shelter, like seeing a dog that goes from totally maybe shut down, or maybe in some cases some personality concerns because they've been so pent up at the shelter, totally do a 180, happy, thriving, and then you see them and people go, oh, how do you love on them for so long and then let them go? It's when you get the pictures from the family, the new family. They're like, we love this dog or cat so much, and this dog or cat has changed our family's life. And then you're like, this is why you do it. It's, it's great for the dog or cat. It's amazing for the families where they go to too.
100%. And we do have some foster fails, which are also amazing. They
we
fall
did
in
that
love.
as well in our house.
So that's okay too.
Yeah. Ours is, folks who are watching on TV, there's a commercial that we have for Clear the Shelters that's running. Our dog is in that Rocky River. He's a brindle. We have multiple rescues that we've had over the years, but he is the foster fail from Charlotte, and it kind of sneaks up on you. I think you don't know that you're going to fail. And when we say fail, it means you were supposed to adopt them out to someone else, but you just decide to keep them for yourself. But yeah, they steal your hearts.
They do. They do.
I get asked that question about both Heidi and Jeremiah, And I think of myself as being part of their journey and setting them up for their forever. So that's just the frame of mind that I've put myself in.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just kind of prepping the mind. I've done it too, where, there's tears, but it makes it all worth it when you see the forever family picture. Ladies, anything else you'd like to share? I mean, we've been alluding to Clear the Shelters. That's this Saturday, and so we're partnering with Charlotte Mecklenburg Animal Care and Control over for the location. It's going to be Byram Drive is where that event will happen. But anything you want to share about that? I know a lot of volunteers will be out there. And we'll definitely have more throughout the week with the shelter itself.
So, I mean, the Clear Shelter also applies to the Toomey location, so hopefully people will head over to Toomey. It is a smaller location, so there's less lines, so that's nice. But I'm just encouraging people on Sunday mornings, maybe even if you don't want to run or walk a dog, you just come over and meet a dog when they're out of the kennels and they're out in the park or out in the parking lot. It's a great way, too, to meet dogs out of that kennel environment.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add just about the overall shelter situation, volunteering, adopting, fostering, anything before we wrap things up here?
I'll say Run Club is also for walkers, so don't be intimidated by the name Run Club, because you can also walk the dogs or just hang out with them in the park like Deanna was saying.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that, volunteering definitely. I would recommend it to anybody that has any interest. Your schedule is flexible. You come and go as you please. The training has been simplified, but it's still very thorough, so you feel safe. And I encourage anybody that's considering volunteering to please go to the website and fill that out. And fostering, of course. We always need fosters.
Indeed, indeed. Well, it's been such a pleasure to have you both here on Live Impact News, and hopefully those pups we profiled will be finding either fosters or forever homes. And I hope that you get more folks over to Zoomy Toomey Run Club, because it sounds like such a fabulous group effort, and anything that we can do to support our local shelters and rescues is really paramount right now. So
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Once again, folks, you can check out more information on WCNC.com. You can also look for this article inside the WCNC Charlotte mobile app, and keep it here on WCNC Plus throughout the week. We'll be profiling other rescues and shelters and adoptable pets around our area. In fact, tomorrow we're set to speak directly with Charlotte Mecklenburg Animal Care and Control about the upcoming event this Saturday. With that, folks, we're going to turn over to an earlier press briefing with White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, addressing multiple topics of interest. Of course, one of the big headlines this week, the discussions of an international scale here regarding the war in Ukraine. And also, on a national level, we've had a lot of focus on the ongoing saga over the takeover of the D.C. police and deployment of National Guard there. Let's listen in.
Hey, everybody. How are you? Good to see all of you. What we've witnessed President Trump accomplish over the last few days has been nothing short of remarkable. We are now 3.5 years into the war between Russia and Ukraine, a brutal conflict that has claimed hundreds of thousands of Russian and Ukrainian lives and cost trillions of dollars. The weakness and incompetence of Joe Biden foolishly allowed the killing to start in the first place. Until President Trump returned to office in January, the bloody and broken Biden status quo was to endlessly force American taxpayers to fund Ukraine no matter the cost, no matter how long it takes, and no matter how many lives were lost. There is no denying that Biden's America Last foreign policy moved the world further away from peace. President Trump rejected that failed approach, and instead, over the last 7 months, has relentlessly pursued peace throughout his second term. And thanks to President Trump's efforts, we finally have movement after years of deadly gridlock. On Friday, as you all know, many of you were there, President Trump hosted Russian President Vladimir Putin in Anchorage, Alaska, for a bilateral meeting. This was the first time President Putin has been to the United States since 2015, and the first time he has met with an American president in years. President Putin publicly confirmed what President Trump has said all along. The war between Russia and Ukraine never would have started in the first place if President Trump were in office. This was always obvious to any person with a shred of common sense. Just look at what took place during the last 4 administrations. Under George W. Bush, Russia invaded Georgia. Under Barack Obama, Russia took Crimea. Under Joe Biden, Russia invaded Ukraine. But under President Trump, Russia did not invade nor take anything. President Trump is the only president this century, Republican or Democrat, who has held Russia in check and ensured peace in Europe. That's because Russia has always greatly respected President Trump and his peace through strength foreign policy approach. But overall, the bilateral talks in Alaska were very productive, and multiple key points were agreed to between the two leaders that truly opened up the door for Phase 2 discussions, which took place yesterday here at the White House, within 48 hours of that meeting in Anchorage, I may add. As you all know, there were many European leaders here, as well as Ukrainian President Zelensky. They all traveled here to meet with President Trump to maintain the momentum and work toward a lasting peace. Across the board, every leader credited President Trump for his decisive leadership that has reignited the dialogue in hopes of finally bringing this war to a peaceful conclusion. Two quotes in particular capture the progress that was made and the optimism moving forward. Finnish President Alexander Stubb said, "I think in the past 2 weeks, we've probably had more progress in ending this war than we have had in the past 3.5 years. Again, that is the president of Finland, a country that shares a border with Russia. That's what we call the President Trump effect. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte also summed it up well. Without President Trump, this deadlock with Putin would not have been broken. He is the only one who could do this." Following the encouraging conversations yesterday, President Trump spoke with President Putin by phone, and he agreed to begin the next phase of the peace process, a meeting between President Putin and President Zelensky, which would be followed, if necessary, by a trilateral meeting between President Putin, President Zelensky, and President Trump. As the president said, Vice President Vance, Secretary Rubio, and Special Envoy Witkoff will continue to coordinate with Russia and Ukraine to make this happen as soon as possible. It's very important to remember that before President Trump's landslide victory last November, there was no end in sight to this bloodshed. Now there may finally be light at the end of the tunnel and an opportunity for lasting peace. That's because President Trump is the peace president, and American leadership is back on the world stage. It should not be lost on anyone in this room that world leaders are coming right here to Washington, D.C. for help. While previous presidents have traveled halfway around the world to apologize for America, President Trump stands up for America, and he has firmly restored America's status as the undisputed leader of the free world. However, one thing that has absolutely not changed is the media's negative and downright false coverage of President Trump and his foreign policy accomplishments. From the beginning of this entire process, much of the left-wing media has been actively rooting against the President of the United States in the pursuit of peace. Initially, the media ridiculously claimed that President Trump was somehow beholden to Russia for even agreeing to have a face-to-face discussion with President Putin inside of the United States. The media said President Trump was making a grave mistake by, quote, legitimizing Putin. They were aghast that President Trump would treat another world leader like a world leader. The media relentlessly attacked President Trump and claimed he suffered a, quote, major defeat for not immediately emerging with a final agreement, even though he said heading into that meeting, this was a meeting to listen and to understand how to move the ball forward. All weekend following those historic U.S.-Russia bilateral talks, we listened to clueless pundits on television trying but failing to claim that the president had failed. The so-called experts in the foreign policy establishment, whose record is nothing but endless wars, trillions of wasted taxpayer dollars, and dead Americans, have the nerve to try and lecture President Trump, who has solved 7 global conflicts in 7 months, about peace. This is the same president, by the way, who brokered the Abraham Accords in his first term, on top of more than half a dozen other peace deals this year alone, as I just said. We also saw yesterday the president of Ukraine and all of the other major leaders of Europe fly across the Atlantic Ocean to meet President Trump at the White House because of the progress that was made, and that, if you ask the media, failed meeting, but it was not. It was highly productive and it was successful. This is why Americans' trust in the mass media is at a lowest point in more than 5 decades. Diplomacy is a delicate process, and instead of reporting the facts about what is happening here at this White House and what is happening between this president and other leaders around the world, many outlets in this room continue to try to actively undermine the president president and sabotage the efforts towards peace. That is why I felt the need to set the record straight. In other news, on the home front, President Trump's efforts to make D.C. safe again are working. There have been a total of 465 arrests since the start of this operation on Thursday, August 7th. Last night, there were a total of 52 arrests, including the arrest of an illegal alien MS-13 gang member with convictions for DWI and drug possession. Thanks to President Trump's leadership and the outstanding work of both federal and local law enforcement, dangerous gang members like the one picked up last night will not be allowed on the streets of our nation's capital. Other arrests last night included assault with a deadly weapon for stabbing, parole violation for robbery, murder, outstanding warrant for attempted murder, assault on federal law enforcement officer, and felony assault. 4 more homeless encampments were also removed during yesterday's reporting period. To date, a total of 48 homeless encampments have been cleared in Washington, D.C. by multi-agency teams. MPD patrol units are actively working with city officials to locate and clear additional encampments and remove homeless residents off of Washington's streets. And despite fake narratives from the media, again, a significant number of the arrests have been in high-crime areas of D.C. In fact, nearly half of all of the non-illegal alien-related arrests have occurred in wards 7 and 8, the 2 wards that have the highest number of violent crime, as well as homicides and assaults with dangerous weapons last year. So while Democrats continue to coddle violent criminals, President Trump and this administration are focused on putting...
All right, folks, we're going to get back to this briefing if we are able to. Meantime, we want to turn to weather impacts, but because, of course, we're keeping an eye on the very latest with Hurricane Erin. We know that this is causing some evacuations and a state of emergency for particularly our coastal areas. So we want to bring in weather impact meteorologist Becca Birdsall to talk more about what we're seeing and what it's looking like. So I guess run us through the very latest with Erin and what sort of concerns we may or may not have for our area.
The main concerns are really going to be along the coast. Beach erosion, rip current impacts, and tidal flooding all going to be expected, which is why we do have tropical storm warnings out for portions of the Outer Banks. For tropical storm force winds expected, that's 40-mile-per-hour wind gusts and greater. We're also expecting some of those large breaking waves to be from 7 to 12 feet in the surf zone, with the potential for that coastal flood warning that is in effect for 2 to 3 feet of water above ground level. So what we're worried about really as we head into the next several days is this could cause quite a bit of coastal flooding, especially out over towards the Outer Banks, because they are going to be closest in proximity to this storm, about 200 miles away from the center of it, especially going into Thursday. That could result in a lot of property damage. So what we can expect really going into this late Wednesday and all day Thursday. Latest track of Hurricane Erin now. This is the 2 p.m. advisory. Winds have weakened down a bit. Sustained max at about 105 miles per hour, and it's moving north-northwest at about 10, still about 630 miles southwest of Bermuda. So this continues to track up to the north. That latest forecast track showing it will remain off the coast, brushing some of those outer rain bands with coastal Carolinas, but the center of that storm going to be well offshore and closest in proximity between Wednesday and Thursday before steering off to sea as we approach your Friday. Now, the winds are going to create some massive swells, and wave heights could be anywhere from 7 to 12 feet, like I mentioned, again, especially over towards the Outer Banks. And this is going to cause just a nightmare in terms of rip current risks as well, with pretty much the entire coast from Florida all the way up to the northeast encompassed under some sort of moderate to high risk. So for today, alongside coastal Carolinas between both north and south, high between today all the way through Friday. Will start to recover a little bit towards the weekend, but a few locations, especially over towards the Outer Banks, actually have a double red flag waving at the beach. That means the beach is closed. We also got reports of about 60 people that were rescued from Wrightsville Beach because of these dangerous swimming conditions. So While yes, this can certainly disrupt vacation, maybe your last vacation before summer starts, but swimming is definitely discouraged going into this week. Maybe just want to hit the pool instead. So Futurecast winds, again, the wind radius of Erin is going to be massive. You can see it extends out into the coast, sometimes with those winds gusting upwards of 40 miles per hour at times, again, especially alongside Cape Hatteras all the way up towards Virginia Beach. You'll notice those winds going upwards of 35 miles per hour and over 40 at times, especially from Thursday morning through Thursday night. By the time it starts to pull out Friday and into the weekend, again, those winds do start to calm down as well. In addition to Hurricane Erin, of course, we're starting to enter into the peak month of hurricane season, and we've got 2 tropical waves directly behind Hurricane Erin that we are watching for tropical cyclone development. So yes, we are keeping an eye on Hurricane Erin, but we are also keeping an eye on several other tropical waves out there that we will continue to monitor throughout the week. Outside now, it's warm, but it's not really hot. Upper 70s to lower 80s, thanks to all that cloud cover that we've had for today. We'll mix in some sunshine with it over the next couple of hours with high temperatures, mainly in the middle 80s for today. Should overall be a nice evening as well, with relatively slim rain chances going into the evening. For tomorrow, we'll introduce a couple of showers and maybe a few thunderstorms, especially north of I-40. That is mainly up towards the high country from the mountains and foothills. We'll do it all again for Thursday as well, potentially with more scattered activity, especially across the greater Charlotte area. So temperatures as we head over the next couple of days will remain in the upper 80s to lower 90s, but Friday, when our cold front starts to approach, going to bring us more clouds, a couple of rain chances with high temperatures dropping into the lower 80s, but you'll really feel that difference heading into this weekend. Highs remaining in the lower to middle 80s as rain chances start to increase, but really this time next week, I think we are all looking forward to a drop in humidity and cooler temperatures with highs in the lower 80s. This could be our first real feel of fall. In the meantime, going to be feeling a little bit more like summer over the next couple of days with near average temperatures. Cooling down Friday into the weekend. Should see a mix of sunshine and clouds both your Saturday and Sunday with a couple of opportunities for some showers and thunderstorms. Of course, we'll be watching for the impacts to ramp up from Hurricane Erin, especially between tomorrow and Thursday. We'll see Erin eventually steer out to sea towards the end of the work week. And cold front's going to be moving in, and I don't know about you, but I'm very much excited for fall-like weather.
I know, particularly when you said the drop in humidity, because that's been the real bug, I think, lately.
Absolutely agree with you on that.
Now, I do have a question. This is just more like curiosity factor. I mean, obviously, we're seeing most of the Erin impacts on the coast. Will this have any sort of indirect impact to us and how we're forecasting over the next few days?
Not at all.
Very interesting.
Not at all. Very interesting. And, you know, with a storm this far off the coast, you'd think you wouldn't have any impacts. But the fact that we're going to see the potential for storm surge over towards the Outer Banks and impassable roads, it's going to be a very stark difference between our weather here in the Charlotte area and out over towards the coastal Carolinas.
Yeah, really interesting. All right. Well, hopefully everyone does stay safe. We appreciate all the updates. And, of course, we'll have more from our weather impact team throughout the day and throughout the rest of the week. Becca, thank you so much for joining us.
Of course.
All right, folks, as promised, we do want to get back to that White House press briefing with Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt.
Earlier today mentioned boots on the ground would be UK, France, Germany possibly, but unequivocally said no U.S. troops on the ground, but U.S. coordination. Can you elaborate on that, and what would the red lines be?
Sure. Well, you got to the heart of what I was going to say to all of you today on security guarantees, which is the President has definitively stated U.S. boots will not be on the ground in Ukraine, but we can certainly help in the coordination and perhaps provide other means of security guarantees to our European allies. The President understands security guarantees are crucially important to ensure a lasting peace, and he has directed his national security team to coordinate with our friends in Europe and also to continue to cooperate and discuss these matters with Ukraine and Russia as well.
Caroline, now, have the Russians responded at all? I know we spoke with President Putin last night. What has been their response? Because we've heard some reports from the Kremlin and others saying they're unequivocally against NATO troops on the ground.
Well, look, the president continues to have these conversations with both leaders. Those conversations took place in Anchorage, Alaska, again yesterday with the Europeans and President Zelensky, and he has directed his team to come up with a framework for these security guarantees that can be acceptable to help ensure a lasting peace and end this war.
And then just last question real quick on this. Regarding some of the funding, we're hearing questions about another round of weapons sales or possibly a round of U.S. purchases of Ukrainian drones. Will that money be funded by the U.S. taxpayers? Are we finally going to see an end to the U.S. taxpayer-funded, seemingly endless mandate for these foreign wars?
Well, the president is very sensitive to the needs of the American taxpayer, and immediately upon entering office back in January, he made it very clear that we're not going to continue writing blank checks to fund a war very far away, which is why he came up with the very creative solution to have NATO purchase American weaponry, because it is the best in the world, and then to backfill the needs of the Ukrainian army and the Ukrainian people and their military. So that's the solution the president has came up with. We'll continue to see that forward. As for any additional sales, I'll have to defer you to the Department of Defense.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Jack. Kelly.
What has President Trump learned that tells him that Vladimir Putin would be willing to make a deal for him, for President Trump?
Well, the president has learned a lot, which is part of the reason he opened up this dialogue. The previous administration, who oversaw the beginning of this war, refused to talk. And President Trump has always said, in order to learn, in order to move the ball forward with diplomacy and towards peace, you have to have open dialogue. And so that's why the president has had several conversations by phone and, of course, an in-person meeting last Friday with President Putin. He also has talked to President Zelensky dozens of times, had him here at the White House yesterday, and he's understanding what both sides want, what both sides are going to have to give up, and he has always said in order to get a good deal, both sides are going to have to walk away a little bit unhappy. So he continues to learn a lot throughout these conversations, which is why we've seen progress from both sides. And I would also just add, when it comes to learning and moving the ball forward, look at how both Russia and Ukraine have actually talked directly for the first time in many years, thanks to the efforts of this president and this administration.
Specifically for President Trump, though, what do you think Putin's motivation is to try to do something for President Trump, as opposed to just resolving the conflict?
I think, as I just spoke to in my opening remarks, Kelly, Russia and all countries around this world actually respect the United States again, and the president is using the might of American strength to demand that respect from our allies, our friends, our adversaries all around the world. And we've seen that not just lead to progress with Russia and Ukraine, but also we've seen it in the closing of 7 global conflicts around the world as well. We've seen it with the release of hostages in Gaza. You've seen it with the end of the conflict between India and Pakistan, which could have resulted in a nuclear war if we had not had a president who believed in the strength and the leverage that comes with the job of being the president of the United States of America. Rachel.
Thanks, Caroline. Heading into Alaska, a lot of the focus in the talk was on this trilateral meeting between these 3 leaders. Can you explain how this went from a trilateral meeting involving President Trump to now the focus being on this bilateral meeting without the president first?
Well, look, the president has spoken to both leaders about this, and both leaders have expressed a willingness to sit down with each other. And so our national security team will help both countries do that. Ultimately, the president has always said that there are areas of disagreement in this war that will have to be discussed and decided upon by these 2 countries. And so he wants these 2 countries to engage in direct diplomacy. He's said that from the very beginning, which is why he's agreeable to the idea of having President Zelensky and President Putin get together. And I understand accommodations for that meeting are underway. As soon as we hear more details, we'll be sure to let all of you know.
And just a quick follow-up. We know as of right now there is no ceasefire in place. We've seen Russia continue its attacks on Ukraine. What indications is the president getting from Putin that he wants to have this meeting with Zelensky soon?
Because he spoke to him directly yesterday.
And he expressed that
Haley,
sooner rather than later.
He spoke to that directly yesterday, and the president put that in his statement that he gave to all of you, the news media, knowing you'd be asking following that conversation in the effort of transparency. Haley.
Hey, thanks, Caroline. You made clear no U.S. boots on the ground. Is the president considering U.S. boots in the air as a form of a security guarantee?
Look, that was something the president mentioned on his interview this morning. It is an option and a possibility. I won't certainly rule out anything as far as military options that the president has at his disposal, I'll let him do that. I can tell you he's definitively ruled out boots on the ground. Sure.
Thanks, Tara. Just about the possible venue for the talks, can you confirm that Putin suggested Moscow as a venue for the bilateral talks? And if so, doesn't that indicate that Putin is perhaps not serious about this, that he's suggesting a venue that there's no way that Zelensky is going to go to?
Look, I'm not going to litigate the private conversations between the president and President Putin, aside from what the president himself has already spoken on, but I can tell you there are many options that are being discussed by our national security team right now with both parties.
Can you give us an indication of where?
I just told you we'll provide you details as soon as we can. Thank you for trying, though. Libby.
Thank you, Caroline. I wanted to ask about the National Guard troops. How is the White House coordinating with how they're being placed in D.C., what areas? And then also, how long should people here in the district anticipate the National Guard to be on the ground patrolling the streets?
I don't have a timeline for you, Libby, but we will keep you posted on that. I think the president, as you know, and this administration, he came to this briefing room with members of his cabinet to lay out the rationale and the reasoning for federalizing the National Guard here in Washington, D.C., and for our work with the Metropolitan Police Department to make our district safer. We've seen violent crime has taken the lives of far too many residents here in our nation's capital, and the president wants to make it safe again. And as for the coordination efforts, this interagency team is meeting and talking daily. In fact, there's a meeting taking place right now in the West Wing with members of the interagency task force to continue to discuss not just the National Guard deployment, but also how we can continue to remove public safety threats off of the streets of Washington, which, as the numbers I just showed you prove, they are doing every single night. I will just reiterate, 465 total arrests and counting since the start of this operation. I believe 11 or 12 days ago. I'll have to check the calendar, but those are pretty remarkable results. If not for this task force and their high level of coordination and the leadership of this president, there would have been 465 more violent criminals on the streets of this capital that you all live in every day. So I think we should all be very grateful for that. Stephen.
Thank you, Caroline. 3 questions about the D.C. crackdown.
Sure.
First, I was wondering if you could clarify something President Trump said. He mentioned getting rid of the slums where criminals live. Was he talking about tents or permanent residential buildings? And then the mayor has expressed an interest in clarifying how much of a focus illegal immigration enforcement is as part of this crackdown. Can you say anything about that?
Sure.
And third, any preview on the beautification?
3 questions. I'll try to answer all 3 of them pointedly for you. First, when it comes to what you said and the president said, the slums of Washington, D.C., he's referring to the most dangerous communities, neighborhoods, and streets in the city where, unfortunately, violence has ravaged these communities and taken the lives of, again, far too many law-abiding D.C. residents. We know on July 5th of this year, continue to do that. And what was your second question, Stephen?
Legal immigration, how much of a focus that is?
Yeah, look, I mean, the focus is to make D.C. safe and beautiful and to remove public safety threats and violent criminals from our streets. If federal law enforcement, with the help of the Metropolitan Police Department, come across illegal aliens, of course, we are going to abide by this administration's policy of law and order, and we are going to remove illegal criminals from our nation's capital. They will be detained and deported, just like they are in every other community across the country. Kristen.
First question is, whose idea was it to change the next steps from a trilateral to a bilateral meeting?
It was an idea that evolved in the course of the president's conversations with both President Putin, President Zelensky, and the European leaders yesterday. And as you saw, Kristen, with all of those European leaders leaving the White House, including the NATO Secretary General, they all agreed that this is a great first step. And it's a good thing that these 2 leaders are going to be sitting down together, and the president expects that to happen.
And how long is Trump willing to wait and operate in good faith for Putin to actually arrange a meeting before he intervenes?
Look, the president has put tremendous public pressure to bring this war to a close. He's taken actions, as you've seen, sanctions on India and other actions as well. He's made himself very clear that he wants to see this war end, and he has scoffed at the ideas of others that have been raised that we should wait another month before any meeting takes place. The president wants to move, and he wants to bring this war to an end as quickly as possible.
Just a clarification on something you said earlier about Putin agreeing to the meeting. The Kremlin seemed to indicate that Putin did not firmly agree to a bilateral. Did he agree to have a sit-down with Justice Zelensky on the phone?
I can assure you that the United States government and the Trump administration is working with both Russia and Ukraine to make that bilateral happen as we speak. Sean.
Hey, if the point is to get everybody on the same page, why wouldn't Trump just take the call from Putin while the other leaders were in the room? He said it would be disrespectful to do that. But why is it disrespectful?
With all due respect, only a reporter from the New York Times would ask a question like that, Sean. The president met with all of these European leaders at the White House 48 hours after sitting down with President Putin on American soil. In fact, there was so much progress in the readout that was given to these European leaders immediately following his meeting with President Putin that every single one of them got on a plane 48 hours later and flew to the United States of America. And if I could just read for all of you some of the statements from those European leaders yesterday, you had President Zelensky himself saying it was a very good conversation. It was really good. We spoke about very sensitive points. The Secretary General, Mark Rutte, it was the president, only because of the president, that this deadlock was broken, but with President Putin by starting a dialogue. So these leaders, who this war is in their backyard, are very grateful that the president took that call and that he was there to provide them with a readout of Russia's thinking on this, something that was not done by the previous administration.
All right, folks, we'll get back to this briefing as we're able to, but we've got a brand new feed into our Live Impact News studio as we speak. We've got Governor Bob Ferguson of Washington State responding after Attorney General Pam Bondi sent a letter just days ago demanding Washington State change laws and policies regarding immigration enforcement and how authorities there work with federal officials. Let's listen in right now.
I don't mean that to avoid your question. I just... And what I believe, or the way I try to approach how things are currently with this administration, is to be prepared, right? That's where we can do our best work. As a cabinet, many of my cabinet members are here, right? As legislators, as organizations, all of us, right? Working together to be prepared as best as we possibly can. And by the way, that goes back to when the Keep Washington Working Act was adopted. I won't repeat, but a lot of that preparation went back into how we crafted that law, how the legislature crafted that law back in 2019. So I don't know what the next step is, but if they do choose to file a lawsuit, obviously we feel very prepared for it. But look, I would not have expected, as a governor of the state, to receive a letter from the U.S. Attorney General threatening to criminally prosecute me and other state officials over the Keep Washington Working Act. That was not something I had on my bingo card when I got elected, that's for sure. Yeah. Yes?
Can you help me to understand, for someone who doesn't have a legal background like you do, when you say you don't know what to expect from the federal government, you're watching, there's possibly billions of dollars that we could lose from federal, like what should the people of the state expect or feel? Because it seems like not knowing what to expect in the very near future is a scary possibility. So what should we tell the people that watch us when there's billions of dollars?
Yeah. So what I would say is we have so far through these first, I guess, 8 months of administration, every time there is some threat to withhold a grant, for example, large or small, withhold funding to education, right? We are on that, okay? I can assure you, my day starts with an 8 a.m. phone call every day. Most days there is some discussion of what's happening at the federal level that could impact our budget, okay? And we go to work right away on that. All these folks here and many others work very hard to make sure we're preserving those federal dollars while not compromising our values. So in answering that question, I can't predict whether they're going to file a lawsuit against us or not. That's up to them. I can't speak to that. What I can say is that we're doing everything we can to work together to make sure we're protecting our resources as a state without compromising our values. And many, many folks in state government and with organizations are working hard to do exactly that. So that is a big focus of us right now and what we're doing. So, I think we feel very prepared for what's coming. The AG's office has been very, very helpful. We loop them in, obviously, when these situations come up to make sure that we're following the law in an appropriate way. So there's a lot of work that goes into it. So that's what I would say to the people of the state of Washington. If you pick up the paper, you see something going on that outrages you about the federal government, I can assure you there's a team in the AG's office, there's a team behind me that are thinking about that. They're having meetings, talking about what we can do to fight back, to uphold our values and protect our resources. Sorry, I'm just going to, if you have a question.
Yeah, other people here on the DOJ's sanctuary list, including Oregon and California.
Yeah.
Have you been in touch with those governors at all? And could you you talk about those discussions? Is there a chance of kind of a de facto coalition being formed?
So I've not had a chance yet to, the letter I think I just saw for the first time on Friday, just to be clear. And so I've not had a chance yet to speak to the governors of Oregon or California, but I'm confident that those conversations will take place. Typically what happens on something like this, just to give you a sense, is I think on the question on the National Guard that was asked, for example, hey, my team would be having conversations, of course, with California, right, team about how they dealt with the National Guard situation. So that'd be very common that the teams would be in communication, and if appropriate, I'd be having a direct conversation, with the governor as well. So haven't had that, just, I'm sure they will happen, but just we've been focused on our response and getting folks together, but I'm sure those conversations will happen, yeah. Has anyone not had a chance to ask a question? Who wants to before I go back for a couple more? Great, let's do a couple more, yeah.
And I also have a question for Senator Wellman if she's taking questions, but a follow-up to the question I asked earlier, and you made the point, if somebody breaks the law, it doesn't matter if they're here illegally or they're citizens, we're going to arrest them, as was the case with the man who killed Trooper Gadd. But the point in the question was, he had had several run-ins with law enforcement in the years that he was living here illegally, where in a non-sanctuary state, they could have cooperated with ICE to move him from the country. There's no doubt that Christopher Gadd would be alive today if it weren't for our state sanctuary policies. We also had the convicted child rapist who was just released from prison in Spokane out onto the streets, so ICE had to go track him down in the community rather than having an orderly and safe, more safe transfer. So no one's saying, let's go round up people in the fields or whatever it is, but why not cooperate with the federal government and with ICE when it comes to known violent criminals who we could remove from our streets in the interest of public safety?
Yeah, appreciate it. I think I've answered that question. Any other questions that folks have? If not, I'll just, last question, yeah, go for it.
We're just getting word from some other states. Governor Newsom has a very similar letter to yours. Are you concerned, though, that some states or cities may not take this approach and do change and bend that knee that you're speaking about? I mean, does that concern you that not everyone's going to take the approach that Washington and California are taking?
I mean, that's a good question. I guess I've been pretty focused on our response here in Washington State, and I try not to with other elected officials, with other governors or elected officials in general, I try to give a lot of grace for folks who have difficult decisions to make, right? There's a lot of things to balance. And so I don't think, Drew, I'd want to, necessarily be critical of someone else on decisions they make or things they have to balance out. All I can speak for is, as a governor of Washington State, is what I think is the right thing for this state, right? That's, I think, what I need to focus on. And everyone's got to make their own decisions. I thought pretty carefully about the letter I wrote. I spent a lot of time on it. Went through every word pretty carefully, multiple times. I realize what I'm expressing.
Folks, we'll get back to this briefing if we are able to. Meantime, we've got some brand new videos coming into our Live Impact News studio of that gas line explosion that happened in Wilmington earlier today. Of course, we've been following this as breaking news throughout the day here on Live Impact, so you can see just how big that plume of smoke is. So we'll just kind of recap what we know. Sounds like 3 Wilmington firefighters are recovering as we speak after this explosion as they responded to that scene. We're told a car hit a veterinary clinic in the area that ruptured the gas line. It happened just before noon, and this was apparently at a location for this clinic that is a new location. It was actually supposed to open in September, so it wasn't quite open yet. Police reporting that the driver in question was actually driving to a car dealership. They went off the roadway, and as we mentioned, they hit the gas line to the building. That driver actually ran away after the scene. Authorities have since arrested them. We're still waiting to hear more about that person. But we did mention the fact that this fire did cause some injury to firefighters. Sounds like those firefighters have unclear injuries in the sense that we're told that one of them might have severe burns on their hands, but we don't know how severe all 3 firefighter injuries are. So once again, some breaking new images here into the Live Impact News studio of this gas line explosion at a veterinary clinic in Wilmington, North Carolina, where we've got 3 firefighters injured and a car crash into the building, to a gas line to the building, causing this. As we get more information, we'll pass it along to you here here on Live Impact and on our evening newscasts as we're able to get new details. Don't forget, we're just moments away from the news at 4 here on WCNC+. With that, we'll send you back to Washington State and the governor there addressing a letter from Attorney General Pam Bondi compelling cooperation with ICE officials.
Plenty of countries where if your dad did that, you'd be going to jail. I'd be going to jail, right? And, you know, the idea that now I need to have that conversation with my daughter, okay, and explain, well, you know, maybe I'm not so sure about that. You know, now our country, a U.S. Attorney General threatens her father and other state officials with exactly that, going to jail. For what? For what? So, look, I try to be careful with my words, you know, I really do, but we just really got to be honest with what's going on in our country right now. You know, we really do. And this is just taking things to an entirely another level. But what I appreciate is the support we have from so many all across our state. For folks who on very, very short notice are dropping what they're doing, being here today, the many other folks who couldn't drop everything today because they're busy with their things, who support our work. And we're not backing down, we're not compromising, we're not going to be bullied, we're not going to be intimidated. We have a lot of challenges ahead of us, but working together, I feel optimistic we will get through them. It's going to be a challenging time, but we're going to get through it. And I appreciate all of you so much for being here today and for all of you for joining today. Thanks so much, everybody. We appreciate it.
All right, folks, and actually